Welcome to Rogue Bogues, episode 33. A fair bit to get through, and we will have a special guest join us towards the second half of the show, so stay tuned for that. Pro, welcome.
Bogues, what's going on, brother? Anything new?
No, nothing's new. Same old, really. Another lockdown here. Again, Groundhog Day. We're in week 2 of a 1-week lockdown and going to be going to week 3, so that's always fun.
Yeah, it's always, you always read up on that stuff, man. It's always a shit show, brother.
Oh, I've got a bunch of American friends that, from both political sides, left, right, middle, texting me saying, what the fuck is going on in Australia? And I can't answer that question. So, California and a bunch of different states, even nationally there, you guys have so many cases coming through. And we locked down. We had one state locked down on one case. They locked down for a week. One case of the virus. So yeah, it's just crazy.
It's funny how different parts of the world handle it. There's nobody that really has it tackled, but like we're going through a lot worse shit than you guys are. And, we're not locked down. I mean, we already went through that stuff, but like I said, there's no perfect way, but I read up on your Twitter and there's always somebody, you're retweeting somebody and something. And, the lockdown stuff is crazy what they got you guys going through.
Yeah, it is. And I think the reason why I'm so vocal about it, not to get too political, is because the voiceless and the working class people that, the labor force can't work from Zoom, Pro. They can't get in their lounge room and do a Zoom meeting to mow someone's lawn or to be a mechanic and I grew up in that working class environment. We'd be absolutely screwed if my father's business was running today. So, they're the people I feel sorry for because they've got no voice. No one cares. It's either the elites have their voice and they're on full pay, sipping wines at 10 a.m. and being able to, join their Zoom meetings on full pay, much like our politicians. But anyway, we'll get away from the politics. We're going to open up with NBA free agency. So some no-brainers, Luca Doncic and Trae Young, basically identical deals, right? 5-year deals, $207 million. I mean, no-brainer, right? We don't need to even get into that too much.
No, not really. Like what the average fan needs to understand with rookie extensions is that it depends. Some's going to get the max, the super max like those guys got. Some are not. But it's almost impossible for a player not to sign an extension with the original team that signed him as long as they didn't get traded in those first 4 years. They're restricted free agents. That means that they could, like, if another team wanted to sign Luca Doncic, and say Luca Doncic didn't want to sign with the Dallas Mavericks, which is total bullshit because he obviously did. But, like, if he wanted to sign, say, with the Lakers, right? And the Lakers had the money. Well, the Lakers could offer him the 207. The problem is, they can't actually because it's not the original team, but they could offer him whatever they want to offer him. And the Mavericks could to match it. And then they're stuck into that. They sign an offer sheet with the new team and then they've got about 2 or 3 days to sign, the original team has 2 or 3 days to match it. And then they're stuck with that contract with the original team. So everybody saying, well, Luka's not going to sign it. He might not. It's total bullshit. There hasn't been a player yet that's going to say no to it. Usually what happens is they go 2 deals with a team and then they'll force their way out of town if that's the case going into their third deal or in the middle of their second deal. So no surprises here.
Yeah, and they'll get the security first, a lot of guys. Even if they know, let's say Luca Doncic thinks I'm going to give it another couple of years in Dallas, he's still going to sign that 4 or 5 year deal and then maybe after year 3 could be like, hey man, it's time to move on. So I'll watch that space. But I mean, they're building something there, so that'll be interesting to watch. Kawhi, he left some money on the table because he didn't opt into his deal last season. He could have got an extra year, I believe, with his extension if he did that. So he left about 10 mil total on the table. But I mean, it's kind of scrapping at coins when you look at what he's making. But $173 million 4-year deal with a player option in the 4th year. We all love that player option. Kemba left some money on the table with OKC. You heard it was 18-20 million, right?
Yeah, about 20 million, maybe a little less, but Sam Presti he's like I said, he's one of the shrewdest guys in the NBA with dealing with that stuff. And they figured that they would keep him. I would assume they would keep him until, it's time they'll continue to try to trade him and get something else in value, a pick or, someone else's contract. That they've been doing that the last couple of years. And look, if you want it out early to get to a contender, because they probably wouldn't use him all that much, probably a little bit like the Horford deal previously. And he probably said, you know what? I made enough money. Fuck it. I'm out of here. But you're going to have to leave some money on the table. And I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood to 18 to 20 million bucks.
And signing a 2-year deal now with the Knicks at 8.7. So, on the grand scheme of things, he's probably lost 15 odd million when you go year to year. So that's commendable for him to get out. I'm sure Presty, they said, we're just going to Al Horford you and tell you to stay home if you don't take a buyout and your career, you're just going to sit on the bench. So they use some leverage there, I would assume. Dennis Schroeder. So we got one right. Again, Pro, we're starting to get on a roll here. It wasn't with the Lakers. I mentioned them as a possibility as a team-friendly deal, but a team-friendly deal with the Celtics. 1 year, $5.9 million ouchie for Dennis Schroeder after being offered, as we said last podcast, $84 million for 4 years, 3, 4, 5 months ago. So I think it'll be good for Boston, but that's a big loss for Schroeder.
Yeah, it is. And look, these guys better themselves. They try to they try to put all their eggs in one basket in free agency. Everybody's sort of 3 or 4 guys that will get overpaid in free agency. He said, you know what, the hell with it. I'll try to get my 20, 25 million or whatever he's trying to get. And sometimes you get caught holding the bag on it. And I thought maybe he could have got something, not maybe what he was looking for, but something in the neighborhood of what the Lakers were giving him, early on. And it didn't happen. And sometimes it's loses in this. And look, he bet on himself. He fucked up. And, there's always that one guy that does it. Look, Nerlens Noel did it with the Mavericks. Supposedly he left about $80 million. He didn't sign an $75 to $85 million deal. And then he didn't get anything. So I think he was getting like mid-level deals or sort of minimum deals, like 2.8 or 3.5. And now I think he just signed a $6 or $7 million deal. But he lost out on a lot of money. And there's always one guy. There's always one guy that sort of overvalues himself. Look, we're full of a league of people who overvalue themselves or what they think they're worth. But in the real scheme of things, you know how much value you have when it's in July or August, whenever free agency is year to year. But when that free agency bell opens up and your phone ain't ringing, you don't have that value. And it's not a political thing. It's not an anything thing. It's, do you have value for one of these 29 other teams? And he didn't. He had the mid-level, the taxpayer mid-level. The Celtics need a point guard desperately. They got Peyton Pritchard, but he's not good enough right now to sort of take them to a little bit of a higher level that they want to get to. Not that Schroeder's Isaiah Thomas from the Pistons or anything, but it's actually a pretty decent get for 5.8. That was a pretty good deal by Brad Stevens running the team now.
I wonder if this was a balls up by Schroeder's agent or if it was him or a mix of both, because your job as an agent for all the listeners out there is when you get an offer from your team, whether it's you're restricted, whether you get an extension offer mid-season. Most agents will have teams on their speed dial already. The way it usually works is, devil's advocate, Schroeder's agent would have called a bunch of teams and maybe someone told him, tell him not to take that deal, we'll give him the max in the off-season. I'm hoping that's the case. And they just got screwed by a team, which can happen too, rather than them just thinking, oh no, he's worth more, we're not taking that. I hope they did their research. But yeah, you see it go both ways. And that's the bad part of the business for players sometimes is you're listening to an advisor or an agent, but maybe it was just strictly Schroeder. Maybe he said, I'm worth more than that. Who knows what the real story is, but someone's fucked up massively there. Because he's now lost $79 million, $79 million, which he can arguably earn back, but there's risks now. And like we said when we mentioned that contract, is you could hurt yourself. Someone could take your legs out by accident. You could get hit by a car. You could hurt yourself wrestling with your kids. Who knows? There's just so much risk of leaving that on the table when it's the beauty of the NBA is it's guaranteed. So once you sign it, you're basically set for life. So
I mean, how many people have you been around in the NBA player wise that didn't have great people around them giving them great advice? I'd say 80%. I'd say 85 to 90% of the league.
More than not. Well, that's a problem. You got the way the NBA player group usually works when they're young is they have their parent, their family. They'll have that one rogue uncle that's advising them, or the cousin, or the guy they grew up with that they trust. They have an agent in the fray. The family usually saying the agent's just trying to rip you off, or the agent doesn't, he's trying to get money and listen to us. And so the players are getting pulled from family to agent to coach to GM. And then there's always that entourage of boys, their friends from college or high school, or they grew up in the neighborhood that then end up living with them because I mean, most NBA players at a young age are single. They move to a city, so they usually have an entourage of a couple of guys so they can go out and do stuff, not be lonely, which is all fair enough, go out to clubs, party, go to restaurants. And they're usually the guys that are like, hey, man, you're way better than player Y. Like, you should be getting more than him, but the organization doesn't see it that way. No one really in the world sees it that way, but it fills a player's head up. And then you see issues like this where guys are turning down big money, and Pro hit it spot on. That's 3/4 of the league for the most part. The guys that figure it out quickly, usually do pretty well. The guys that don't, they either lose money, leave money on the table, or they end up blowing their money because they've got all these guys on their payroll telling them what they want to hear. So it's pretty messy in that sense, I think. But rounding this off, Udonis Haslam has signed one more year, 19th year in the NBA, $2.6 million vet min deal. Now, this is definitely a culture coaching signing. He's not going to play a vital minute, I don't believe, unless they need to get him in there to clothesline somebody. Other than that, I think this is, from what I heard, Miami is a very tough place to be in. We've spoken about how professional it is, but I've also heard it's boot camp like. There's no messing around. It's long practice sessions. They go hard. There's no, where the line is, and you're not even getting your toe close to it, put it that way. So I think this one is a direct correlation from the front office and the coaching staff to have someone in the locker room that they can kind of count on to make sure that culture's, bought into and instilled. And Udonis is going to have those conversations with new guys at times of like, hey, this is what we do here. This is what's acceptable and what's not. And it is what it is. You need to buy in. Otherwise, they're going to get you out of the door. So I believe that's his role, Pro. I don't think it's basketball related.
Yeah, no, he's their Alonzo Mourning. He's their new Alonzo Mourning, Juwan Howard. He's the guy that, and Alonzo was there longer, I think, than Juwan was, but he's the player that they trust, the locker room that they, people respect those guys in the locker room. And look, it's a funny story with Udonis. So he played for a good friend of mine, Frank Martin, who's a head coach of South Carolina in high school. Then he goes to Florida, did really well. Came out in the NBA. I believe he was undrafted and had an big time agent at the time. Had to go play in France, came back, and then finally made a name for himself. I mean, it wasn't a smooth ride getting into the NBA. And this guy's a warrior who they love, and he'll be with that organization. He'll be a high-ranking official in that organization for the rest of his life. I mean, he's that revered in that town, that organization, those guys. That's sort of everything that Riley and Spoelstra and that organization sort of is around. That's what they're about. Is definitely going through with Udonis. He won't play any meaningful minutes, like you said, unless he needs some, unless needs to be a clothesline or needs to send a message. But he's just there for the young guys to understand they can't fuck around. He's going to police that locker room. There aren't many. I don't think there might be 5, if that, in the whole league that police a locker room these days. You know how it is, a fucking circus. And he's one of those guys that could police it, have respect. He'll fight you if you don't. He's a real tough guy. He's a guy that could play in any era of basketball and survive because he's one of the toughest players I've ever been around. And it's totally a culture deal. He'll just keep going with it.
That's it. The only notable Aussie free agents left we spoke about, for me, Dante Exum and Thon Maker. Do you think they get signed, Pro, either of those guys? Give me the crystal ball on both those guys. First go, Dante Exum. What do you think this season? Do you think it's going to be a camp deal? Do you think it's going to be some sort of minimum deal? Yeah,
I think you're going to see Thon probably sign closer to training camp, and then he'll sign a non-guaranteed deal. And you'll probably see him sign in the next few weeks. I don't see him, maybe the next 4 to 6 weeks. I keep forgetting about the new time deal, but I don't foresee him on an NBA roster. I don't. I think he'll end up being either in the D League or he'd get cut late. He'll probably cut last cut in training camp, but I don't think you're going to see him on an NBA roster. I think you'll see him in the D League or you'll see him sign internationally. I would think that he'll probably try to go the year playing in the D League, get a fair shake to get back to the league. But I don't really foresee him this year. Dante, I really think that Dante will sign with an NBA team. I think that somebody will probably give him a partially guaranteed 2-year deal, and you'll probably see him sign in the next month or so. What do you think, Bogues?
Yeah, I mean, I think Thon can fill a role. There's I think he's around that 12 to 18 on the roster. So it could be two-way, it could be something along those lines. He still is young on paper and has potential, shooting the three ball better, and has length and athleticism to play that 5 spot now, which is what everyone wants. They want a shot blocking 5 that can shoot threes, so he can do that. But I just no rhythm in where he's been the last couple of years. Hasn't really, the consistency thing's been an issue for him, and not all blame would be on him neither. He's bounced around a fair bit in and out, so he's figuring things out. I think teams kind of just have given up on him early. Hopefully, I think the ceiling for this season would be for him to fight through a camp deal. So I think he gets a camp deal, and then he's just got to prove his worth in camp and really have a good training camp. And a la Matthew Dellavedova in whatever year that was, 2014 or 2013, comes out and just they're like, we just can't cut this guy. He's earned a roster spot. So hopefully he gets that opportunity to prove himself, and that's all you can do. You can leave it on the table and know you gave it a crack. And then if that doesn't happen, I agree. I think G League, he'll probably hang around for another year. Like most of those guys that are fringe will hang around for a year or two until they get frustrated with the pay in the G League. And if he doesn't get any call ups, then I think the NBL or Europe could be on the cards. But we hope he sticks. And Dante, I agree. I just can't see how someone wouldn't throw him a flyer. Look, the injuries we know. It's been noted he's had some injuries, but he was phenomenal in Olympics, and I think that proved his stock a lot. He was healthy throughout it, and that was games that were pretty much every other day or every second day. Played well through there, but yeah, you can do a whole lot worse, even as your 8, 9, 10 guy, where you're not relying on him to play 30 minutes a night. So there goes that injury concern is obviously much more diminished if he's not playing bulk minutes. And I think his energy, his defensive presence has really got much better. There's a lot of teams out there that could use him. So I made some calls to a few teams, just kicking tires, trying to get him on a roster, and said, look, he's a great kid, and you won't hear a peep from him culturally, and he'll work hard. And it was, I think the teams that I spoke to only had 2 ways available, and I don't think he'll do a 2-way yet. So we'll watch that space, but hopefully they both get picked up. Summer League, I'm going to be honest, I haven't watched a whole lot of Summer League. I saw Josh Giddey's first game, and he turned his ankle straight away. I haven't really followed it too much since. Saw Kuminga for the Warriors. Looks like a really unique talent with the way he can provide his skill set on the floor, put the ball on the floor, off the handle. He's athletic enough. Just a matter of where he's going to fit on that roster and what position he plays, and next to who. That's about all I've seen from Summer League, Pro. What about yourself?
I've watched a little bit of it, Bogues. I'm not a huge Summer League fan, like I said in the prior episodes, but from what I've seen, it's always the Bowl show. He's a guy who looks like Wilt Chamberlain during Summer League, and then he'll end up being like Johnny Chamberlain during the year. It's always funny to watch guys that play really well in Summer League but just can't get in NBA games. But as far as rookies and young players, I think Jalen Green from Houston played really well. I think he's averaging about 20 points a game. He's just athletic. He goes hard. He's one of those guys that he'll just keep attacking. Now, he'll have plenty of opportunity in Houston. They're not going to be very good. And, they'll give him plenty of opportunity, plenty of shots, and he's got a good coach down there. So, he'll do well. Cade Cunningham has been solid. I think he's averaged about 19 a game. He's been good. He's shot it okay. He shot it about 42% from the field, and, 50 from the 3. So he's played well. He's played solid. But a lot of the second-year guys have been playing well. Cam Thomas, too, a kid from LSU playing at Brooklyn. I actually worked him out. He went to Oak Hill Academy, one of the top high school programs in the country down in Virginia. I worked with him a few years ago. He's played well. He's averaged 23 a game. He's a 2 guard, could really shoot it. Struggling a little bit from 3, but he's gone hard at guys. But the other guys that's been playing well, like Trey Jones has played well from the Spurs, 24. Tyrese Maxey from Phillies played very well. Patrick Williams from the Bulls have played well. Not a lot of great rookie there's been maybe one-offs with the rookie games, but it's more like I said in prior when we talked about Summer League, I think rookies are trying to feel themselves out in the Summer League deal. It takes them a few games, but I think the second-year player has already gone through Summer League already and already gone through a whole season and sort of strength coach and strength program and development program. They sort of know what Summer League's about, and they tend to do a little bit better than the rookies do, unless it's another case. But yeah, those are sort of the names. Even Max Strauss from Miami played well. Averaging about 19 a game. He's really firing it up. He doesn't really have much opportunity during the year, so this is where these guys get showcased. They get showcased because they're going to play well in their next, they're going to get some time for their team, hopefully in the next season, or they're getting showcased for trades early in the season. So, the basketball is completely fucking brutal, though. I mean, seriously, it's like the Harlem fucking Globetrotters meets the circus meets fucking, and one mixtape tour. It's hard to watch. Especially now that guys are getting a little bit tired, they're coming up with some phantom injuries. So some of these first rounders don't have to play after like 2 games. They get to go home and do what they got to do. But that's my summer league report.
Yeah, with the first rounders, though, it's a tough one for teams. I guess they want them out there for a couple of games, get their feet wet. You just don't want to risk an injury in summer league, I guess.
Nah.
Especially if it's a top 10 pick. If it's, if you're the 40th pick, you let them play all 4 or 5 games. Or if they've played really well the first 2 games and you're like, shit, this guy's going to be in our rotation and play minutes, time to shut him down. But if it's a kid that is probably not going to play a whole lot the first year, we'll usually see them, playing every game and playing as hard as they can. But yeah, the teams are now very strategic with it because we've seen guys have, really bad injuries in summer league, and I guess it's just one of those things where they don't want to have that risk of losing a guy that they think is going to be in their rotation. So we'll watch that space. I've enjoyed just seeing. It's amazing how many people go out there now, how many players, and make a big deal about sitting courtside. That's really been a big thing. The last probably 5 or 10 years has just been such a massive thing now where it's really pumped up, and that's the NBA for you for a summer league game. But I know some of those guys that are elite level NBA talents can't be enjoying what they're watching at times.
No, but Bogues, I'll tell you what, it's a multi-million-dollar whole deal there for the summer league. I remember, so when I was with the Celtics, we had a summer league in Boston. We had, I think there was like 16 teams or so. It was a pretty big league. It built up over about a 3-year period. And then there's the Democratic Convention was coming in Boston one year. I was with Danny Ainge. I remember we were going to like the Elite 8 games in New Jersey, and we were at a Subway eating. And they had to make a decision because the Democratic Convention was coming into Boston that summer, and there was going to be no hotel rooms. It's going to be traffic. It's a huge deal, a political thing in the United States. So we had to cancel it, and we had to give all our teams to Las Vegas. And Las Vegas was like an okay, smaller, mid-level league, and then they got like almost every team. That was probably like 2004, where they just got every team. And it's like, I mean, the tickets and sponsorship and all these classes that are being held in events in Las Vegas to sort of piggyback that. I mean, it's a the guy that runs it, Warren Ligari, who sold it to the NBA, and he still runs it. He represents coaches and stuff and GMs in the league. And it is a multi-million-dollar media-driven thing where, like, they're rolling everything out. They're rolling, like new rule changes and rookies and trying to get their players to sort of go courtside because they'll usually work out for a couple of days with the team and then go back, to wherever they're from. But yeah, it's unbelievable. Halftime shows, and it's a big deal, huge deal.
It's an event. That's what the NBA loves. They love having an event within the event. So that's definitely no surprises. I'm going to move on to some coaches' comments that I've found interesting over the last couple of weeks. One was from Chauncey Billups. It went something like this: I'm not one of those coaches that wants to shoot all threes and get up 50 threes. I don't believe in that. That was his comment over the last week, and it piqued my interest because I thought, have you seen the roster that you just acquired, Chauncey? I mean, Dame's one of the best out there in scoring, but he's notorious for logo threes and pull up what would be deemed bad pull up threes once upon a time. CJ McCollum takes a lot of tough contested threes at times, and that's the way the game's going. And all we hear about is analytics and getting threes up, where this is an interesting conundrum that we're in because Chauncey's from that Detroit Pistons era where it was we're going to grind you out in the 80s and 90s and wrestle for every point. So who do you think wins that battle, Pro?
You know who's going to win that battle. It's not going to be Chauncey. And this is where inexperienced coaches, because Chauncey has no coaching experience. He's, coached 1 year and he's been an analyst for, since he retired. He hasn't coached anywhere. And this is where you got to be careful because everything, especially these days, gets magnified. Sometimes as an ex-player or in your playing days, you're used to saying whatever you want, whenever you want it. And everybody loves your comments. Well, now this is sort of an example of where you got to chill a little bit with this stuff because it could be taken the wrong way. You've got a guy he doesn't have any feet out the door yet in Dame. It's probably going to head that way at some point. But like right now, everything's just okay. It's not great. It's not terrible. But you can't be saying stuff that sort of fuses these things. And I think that you got to chill with that. Look, it's not the worst thing in the world to say, look, I don't want to just jack out bad shot. You just got to watch what you say. Unfortunately, that's what it is because the media and social media just takes a run at you. And that's what he's done. And it's not smart to say. It's going to get back, and they're going to twist it. And, they're already going to twist it and throw it around. And yeah, it's just not, especially the roster they have, like McCollum and, Norman Powell and, in Dame. And I mean, it's just a roster of guys who shoot. It's just, that's how the league is. I mean, you could say that to your team, but don't say it in the media just because everyone's going to use it against you. You don't think Philly, who wants Dame, and some of these other teams aren't going to start, trying to get to him, get to his agent saying, oh, what do you mean? What's your boy doing? He's not looking to shoot threes. You got to get out of there, blah, blah, blah. And now it's going to fuel the fire because everything from now until he's gone is going to be fueling him to leave. And comments like this, look, you're not a player anymore. You're not a media guy anymore where you can say anything you want to say. You got to be careful of what you say. That's why the veteran coaches, especially the ones that are sort of savvy, they know even if they feel a certain way, they can't say it because it's going to head to this, It's going to be a rough deal.
Yeah, no, and then the first game they lose where someone shoots more threes than them, like not even makes more threes, just shoots more threes, like let's say Portland shoot 20 and another team shoots 40, you know what's going to happen. You're going to have every beat writer in the world saying, remember those comments? They're going to lose every game if they don't do this. So yeah, you're totally right. It's just pouring more fuel on the fire. It's definitely a conversation. And I agree somewhat with Chauncey, like the game is going more three predicated, but I'm not a fan of the pull-up contested three in transition early in the shot clock after you've just bricked 3 straight possessions. I'm not a fan of that. I'm a fan of time and place. So if you've hit the last 2 or 3 and you're feeling good and you want to take a logo one, I'd live with it, right? But it's time and place, time and score, and I somewhat agree with him. But yeah, the way the game's going, it's a three for all, not a free for all. It's a nice pun, but it really is in the NBA. You got to jack them up. The other comment I saw that was interesting, Becky Hammond, in this era of diversity hires and having to hire XYZ, someone of a certain gender, sex, or sexuality, or race, or skin color, she's made some comments saying, please don't hire me to check a box. That's the wrong thing you can do for me. Hire me because of my skill sets and coaching, who I am as a person. Well done, Becky Hammond. I totally agree. I think she's hit it out of the park, and that's what it should be. We've gone on rants about this for over the last 6 months about best available for the job, regardless of all those factors. And I think she's hit it on the head. Like, hire her because she's qualified to do the job, and hire her because she's going to help your team win games and better your team culturally and improve the player development. And I liked what she said. So hopefully she means it. And at the end of the day, whenever that first woman's hired, there's going to be that stigma of, was it a check of a box, as Becky Hammond said, and that's something they're going to have to deal with, which is, probably unique to the first female that's going to be hired that males generally don't have to deal with. But yeah, how'd you find those comments?
Yeah, I call a little bit of bullshit, though. I do think that, yeah, she is right what she said. Hey, look, hire me I'm the right person. But here's my thing. Because it's human nature. And I think any assistant coach in that league would say the same thing that hasn't been a head coach yet and hasn't really made real money yet. If her agent comes up to her and says, look, the Portland Trailblazers, wants to hire you. And he goes, look, they want to hire this coach, but they're going to hire you because you're a woman. Because they want the media, and the owner's wife is sort of, she's pushing for it. Or the owner is a woman, but like say the owner is a man and her wife was pushing. And she knows that, but say, hey, look, Becky, you're going to have control of the team. You're going to hire most of your staff. They want one person they're going to hire in the front of the bench with you. I don't think she's going to give a fuck that she's a woman or not. I think that she's going to say, you know what? It's 4 years, $16 million. I get to coach my own team and I get my job. I think she'll go to Target or Staples, buy a Sharpie, go to the city and check the box for them. And I think that she'll say, I'm going to take this job. That's what I think. Because it's human nature, Bogues. Anybody in that league, especially when it's not about them. They'll be like, oh, hire me for this, when you don't have a job yet. Because there hasn't been a woman offered a job yet in the NBA. But if they're going to offer a job, now, I'll tell you when she wouldn't take the job. Because she'll 100% take it, even if it's a deal like that. But she would not take the job, I think, if they said, yeah, they're going to hire you because you're a woman, and they're going to control, like, they're going to do like the New Orleans deal. They're going to control your whole staff. You can't hire anybody. They're going to control the rotations, and now you're just going to be a puppet. I guarantee you she wouldn't take it then, because not only are they just checking a box, but also it's going to be you have no control over it. But I think she says that stuff because everybody talks tough with this stuff. But I think that if she was offered a job at 4 years, $16 million, that she's going to take it. As long as she has control over it and she could run it. That's what I think. Because, Bogues, this whole thing, and the problem about the NBA and the female hires and things with the assistant coaches, half the league does check boxes. Half of them don't value the position. They need to do it because they need the media when they hire these women assistant coaches. Not every team, but from my information is telling me there's about half of the league that just hires them. Hey, look, we need to do it, and they don't have any real mentoring that goes on with the females. They don't really have a real plan for them. I don't think half the league has plans for any of their coaches, their assistant coaches. They're just there. And I think that but for Becky, I think that, yeah, she that says in the right things. Don't hire me for me. But when push comes to shove, she'll take the job because it's a life-changing money, and you get to do what you want to do. You want to be a head coach. Like if you're sitting there and you're an African-American assistant coach, and this team says, hey, we're going to hire you because you're an African-American. We haven't had an African-American in 10 years or forever coach our team. And we're getting pressure, so we're going to make that move. Are you telling me you're not going to take the job? Are you going to tell me that now you're going to be, oh, wait a minute, I'm not going to take the job because of this? No. If they're saying that, anything to do with that, if you really want to be a head coach, I think you can look past that a little bit. As long as you have control over your own destiny and not micromanaging you, I think that she would take the job even if she knew that. No one's going to really tell you that 100% anyway. They're not going to put it out there that they're going to hire just because it's a woman. But I think she will take the job. It's life-changing money, and you do what you dreamed of doing your whole life is being a head coach. I think she would do it, even if she knew that, as long as she had control over her situation.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. The only reason I found the comments unique is because it's kind of the anti of what you're supposed to say. You're almost supposed to say, yeah, it's bullshit. The NBA hasn't hired a woman as a head coach. I'm that lady, I'm that girl, I'm that woman. It's about time. That's kind of what we hear. So she's kind of gone against the narrative of what is acceptable to say publicly, in my opinion. But I think it's just interesting. It was just an interesting one to see. I totally agree with you. You put the money talks, bullshit walks, like we always say. So whether you're a token hire or not, once that ink's down on paper and you've got a chance to put your name next to it, 99% of people are going to be like, yep, done. Where do I sign? What do I do? So,
hey, if anybody wants to check a box of a fat fuck bald guy, I'll check the box for you as well. So if there's anybody out there that wants to give me 4 years of 16 and only hire me because of that, I'm in.
Well, you make an interesting point. There's not how many big bone coaches are left. Is Thibs the last one that I can off the top of my head? Well, he's not even that big bone, but he'd be the last bigger gentleman, right? So you might have a cause to go public, pro, and start a campaign about a bit of diversity in the BMI body fat percentage hirings of NBA coaches because there's obviously an agenda against you.
Bogues, I'm so fat my fucking bones have liquefied. I got no bones left. So I'm past big boned. I'm just fat. I'm just fucking fat. I could take it.
Well, that's a way to railroad yourself. You just lost the chance to railroad yourself into a job, bro. You could have been a victim, but I digress.
That's all right. You know what? I'll take this. This job's a fit for me. That's the only thing I can fit into is this fucking job. Yeah. So we'll go with that.
We spoke about this a couple of pods ago. So the Lakers, Kings, Sacramento Kings, I believe, LA Kings, Ducks, Galaxy, Chargers have all mandated vaccinations for all employees. Not a huge deal by most people's standards, I guess, but wait for it. Players are not on that list, pro.
Of course.
So this is a real slippery slope. If you're an employee that does not want to get the vaccination, and you get fired, whereas there's other employees which are players who they've worded as saying, well, they've got a separate union and we don't want to get involved in that. I feel lawsuits coming, pro. I think there's going to be some wrongful dismissal claims. I don't know about you, but you can't have one rule for half your employees, regardless of unions and all that shit, and one rule for another. And this just comes down as they're the elite athletes and they're elite, so they get different set of rules. This is not gonna finish well, I don't believe, because there's gonna be lawyers lining up to take these cases.
Nah, Bogues, I said it when we talked about it before. It's bullshit. Look, if you're behind this stuff, if you're a league that's all for it, then force your players to do it. And if you're an assistant coach, look, the players are going to get more than the assistants. They're going to be treated better than the coaching staff 99% of the time. And for 99% of the time, the coaches are like, you know what? It is what it is. They're the show, not us. And I get it. But with this, fuck that. I got the vaccine, so I'm not against the vaccine. But I understand if you don't want to get it. I totally get you. I understand it. But you're not going to tell me as an assistant coach who doesn't believe in it that I don't want to get it for one reason or another. And then the players, all these guys, they don't want to take it, so they're not going to get it. And that's okay. You can't do it that way. That's bad fucking leadership. Because now I'm sitting there like, wait a minute, my life doesn't mean, more or less than these guys. I don't want to do it. My value system is, it's not as good as the players is. We're all the same. And we got to treat us all the same. So no, fuck that. I'm not for that at all. That's bullshit.
Yeah, it is. It's just going to be interesting to see, because I think you can't have, for the record, I'm a choice guy. So with medical stuff, which I'll cop shit for, I've had my vaccinations as far as flu shots, and I had to go to Brazil when there was that Zika virus back in 2016. I got the shot for that. I had all my shots are up to date. But with all of those that I've had, and the COVID one, I'm all for people making their own medical decisions. That's just what I think, and I'm not going to pressure someone to not do it or to do it. I respect your decision, but yeah, in this circumstance, if you're going to have a blanketed rule, whether you agree with that rule or not, it should be the same for everyone. And this is just you can't not only assistant coaches. Like, think about if you're just you just work in ticket sales, or you just work in, you're a janitor at the facility, even the people that are on lower wages that work around there that lose their job. It's like, oh, you're not vaccinated, see you later. And then you're watching TV and, player X, the star's not vaccinated and he's still fine. And yeah, it's just a dangerous precedent, and it's not going to be strictly unique to the NBA. It's going to be a lot of different workplaces. So we'll watch that space, but just an interesting one in the world of professional sports. Did you happen to see the Jason Kidd blow up the last week or so?
I did. I did.
So for those not familiar, Giannis there's a biography out, I believe. I'm not sure when that came out. Has it been out for a while? I think
it just came out semi-recently. I'm not on top of that, but probably in the last couple of months, if not very much sooner.
So there's a few grabs that people have posted online. One of them is about Jason Kidd, the Christmas Grinch. So I'll read this one out real quick. Bucks were struggling, dropping a game to Charlotte December 23rd, right before Christmas. Players returned to the locker room dejected, silent. Everyone was ready for the next 2 days off with their families. Zaza, Kidd said, turning to Pachulia, but addressing the team, addressing the group. Do you think this was a winnable game? Yes, it was a winnable game, Pachulia said. And do you think we deserve the next 2 days off? Pachulia couldn't believe that Kidd had put him in that position. Threatening to ruin Christmas, Pachulia tried to make strike a diplomatic tone. You know what, coach? I understand the frustration. We're all frustrated, but this was a game we were supposed to win. We didn't give enough effort. But at the same time, this is a holiday. Christmas is important to our families. It's not about us. It's about our families. Guys have made plans already. So just quickly, people out there, when the Christmas games are coming up or there's a holiday, usually your coaches will notify you a week before what the plan will be. So some guys go out of town. They fly home to family. Some guys have family come in. Whatever it is, they'll give you a bit of notice. You can kind of organize yourself. That's kind of pretty normal. Of course, unless you're playing on Christmas Day, then you're kind of screwed, like I was with the Warriors for most of the time. But that's a privilege to play on that day anyway. So Kid then turned to Dudley. What do you think? Should we take these next 2 days off? Dudley, too, gave a diplomatic answer. Kid wasn't satisfied. See you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m. Well, the players said, what do you mean? We're going to have practice tomorrow. We booked flights to different places. A kid said, I don't care. You guys get paid to do a job, so you're doing your job tomorrow. Things changed. Practice the next morning was ugly. Kid went at Sanders, Larry Sanders, called him a piece of shit, a terrible player. The team ran and ran and ran like a college team would. I don't think I've done that since I left Jason Kidd, Brandon Knight says. It was not normal. Players had to finish a fast break drill in 22 seconds, but 27 was the team's best record. They did it over and over until they made it. Some were bent over, panting, cramping. Practice lasted 3 hours. That's insanely long for an NBA practice mid-season. Usually a 2 hour would be crazy long. But anyway, Kid made the players lift weights and do pool exercises. Half the team didn't know how to swim. but Kid made everyone run in the pool. Everyone was so tired. Nobody was thinking about Christmas. We didn't have any energy left to open gifts, Pachulia said. Kid continued to berate Sanders, though, calling him pathetic. Sanders couldn't handle it. Where he was in his life, his career, this practice, all his mistakes, all his frustrations, he felt his entire body turn to jelly as he cramped from head to toe. I had a full body convulsion, Sanders said. My body broke down. Physically, I couldn't take it, and mentally, I really couldn't take it. Sanders asked to be excused to the bathroom. Oh, don't worry, said Kid, as Sanders walked away. We'll wait, then run some more. Sanders left the facility, took himself to the hospital, spending the night there. If you knew what had happened in the aftermath and you didn't have the energy then to talk about it, I don't think he's a bad person, Sanders says about Kid. But mentally, he kind of brain fucked me a little. It was a lot of, I love you, kiss you on the cheek. Now it's all about money. Who cares about your mental health, your body breaking down? I'm happy. I'm in a much better place now. He says, I'm sorry it had to go out the way it did. So that's the first one. We'll get to a few more later, but how do you it's a tough one because, I played with Larry Sanders, by the way, and he was a great teammate. I had no issues with him. He played hard. He was still learning the game when we drafted him, but very, very long, athletic, had a lot of potential. So I don't really see Larry as a lying kind of guy. But the Christmas thing's an interesting one. I'm not sure, Pro, if you've been on any teams that have changed plans like that, but I have. I think Scott Skiles did that a couple of times when we were supposed to have a day off. I still remember one year we played I was in Milwaukee, so we played the end of our West Coast road trip was in Sacramento, and Skiles always had a thing about flying after games home. He wasn't a guy that would stay in the city overnight. If we could get home, he'd get home. So we played Sacramento. Sacramento sucked back then, and we lost to them in Sacramento. We fly back to Milwaukee, so we're fighting the time difference. They're already, I think, Sacramento to Milwaukee. Milwaukee's 2 hours ahead. So by the time we leave, get on a plane from Sacramento, it was like 2 or 3 a.m. Milwaukee time. So we landed at like 6:30 or 7 a.m., which is ridiculous in itself. And as we're getting off the plane, our trainer comes back and says, practice 10 a.m. So we're like, all right, cool, see you tomorrow. He's like, no, today. Practice 10 a.m. today. And everyone's like, what do you mean? We just landed at 7 a.m. So I live 30 minutes from the airport. So I basically drove to a Subway, got a breakfast sandwich, and just went to the facility. And it was the worst day of my life, like for everyone. I remember Tyronn Lue was in the hot tub that morning before the practice, right off the plane. And he told me point blank, I'm retiring, man. I'm done. I'm done after this. This season's killed me. So there are coaches that are taskmasters, and Kid has a point. You are paid to play the game, and that's the unique luxury you have of playing NBA basketball is Christmases, birthdays, New Year celebrations. They all go out the window. They're at the peril of a basketball game, and you have to respect that. But do you agree with what Jason Kidd did, and would you have handled it differently? As
a head coach, look, you only have certain amount of bullets in your gun that you could pull. And if you're going to die on a hill, don't fucking die on a hill by practicing and busting a player's balls the day before Christmas or 2 days before Christmas. You got to know better than that. Now, they didn't have any superstars in the team, so it's a little bit different. You could be a bully if you want to with a lot of younger kids, which mostly they had on the roster at that time. I think that it's sometimes it's hard because your emotions get the best of you, but you got to understand that this thing's a fucking marathon, and if you think you want to be a tough guy one day in practice, showing them who's boss, it could really hurt you in the future of your self-coaching, because you better be fucking good. You better be a championship level team in producing. And then you could say, they could say that whole thing where, because I've been around tyrants before, fucking terrible people, but the people in charge would be like, oh no, they're just motivated, Bill Belichick style, they're just driven to win. but you better be fucking right when you do shit like that. I think that it's best to sort of, I think it's best to just sort of like calm down, take a breath, and say, you know what? Let's give them off. It's Christmas, a couple of days, and then when we come back, we'll address it. Because I think when you overreact, and this is about 99% of people, if they're going to overreact, they're going to overreact in this situation right here, where they think they're lethargic, they're not earning their money. You could be pissed, you could rip into them a little bit. But I think doing things like this sets you up for, some bad shit. And it did for him. He didn't last all that much longer after that. And I just think you got to relax. You got to learn from this. Hey, look, you're always going to make a mistake as a coach. You're not going to be perfect. In something like this, I think you just say, you know what? Next time in this situation, I'll handle it differently. I definitely disagree with this. I think that, look, you can make your point. You can be a prick, but you just got to choose time and place.
There's discipline and then there's personal insults, right? So you can be disciplined, like, no, we're coming to practice, we're just going to get an hour in, but that's what most coaches that were pissed that if we had a day off, they would just make you come in just to come in. You know what I mean? Like just that whole, all right, we didn't earn this day off, we're coming in, but they wouldn't necessarily try to, 3-hour berate you where you're collapsing. But there's discipline and then there's just personal kind of psychological warfare, which funnily enough was a comment from Nixon Dorvillian, Bucks assistant trainer from 2014 to 16. Jason has a brilliant mind, but he kind of made you uncomfortable around him. When players go through it and it's uncomfortable, they like to say he's playing mind games with me, but it's not that at all. That was Greg Foster. He's trying to get you to do something you wouldn't normally do. That's coaching. But then there was, some further comments that said his coaching style with the Nets and then with the Bucks was described as psychological warfare by one former player. When asked about Kidd, players and coaches often say on the record or off. So I think there's some smoke to that fire of what you're talking about. And there's discipline. And I've been under the most craziest, like Rick Majerus was the ultimate disciplinarian and was 10 out of 10 on the personal jibes and just had to figure it out. And it's not something you should have dealt with, but it was what you had to deal with at the time. I like the disciplinarian side of coaching where it's like, hey, these are our standards and we're not bending those standards for anyone. But if someone bends those, you don't then, call them every name under the sun in front of the group. There's different ways of handling that. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's the bench. See, most NBA coaches don't use that. If you don't do what they're supposed to do, and look, people are going to have bad games. They're going to shit the bed. They're going to have shitty, slumps of 2 or 3 games in a row sometimes. And you've been around it. You understand that. But if they're not respecting the game, if they're not respecting being a pro, then you use the fucking bench. But most of these teams, I don't blame some of these coaches because they don't want to use the bench because they don't want to stand up to their players, their better players especially, because they're not going to get the support from the management and ownership because they're going to take the player side. They're going to get fired anyway. So I guess if you're going to go out your own way, but I'm telling you, it's not going to help, especially in today's age. That was a few years back. Now fast forward 6 years, 8 years or whatever it's been. Imagine now how much player empowerment's changed. If he tries to even play bullshit like that, that'll be all over the internet. It's not going to wait 8 years for that to come out. It's going to get all over it, and it's not going to be good for you. There aren't many coaches that could survive doing that shit, what he did, because it's going to get out, and I don't give a fuck. It's going to be bad.
Yeah.
But use your bench. Use your bench. You never have to you don't have to get personal with a player. Go use the bench. Have some fucking balls and use the bench. And that's what I would say. Use the bench. But hey, look, I mean, it's easy for me to say it. I'm not the one coaching. I've been pissed at players before, but I've never done anything close to that. But I understand. Hey, everybody feels a certain way and thinks they got to do it a certain way. But I just don't think that style will work, especially in today's age. I mean, can you imagine doing that to an NBA team today, folks? What would happen?
You talk about the strikes that they were pulling during the bubble. There'd be some strikes from practices and games. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back was the final one. It was one January game at Philadelphia. The Bucks messed up a defensive coverage. Kid thought Giannis had made the mistake. Giannis respectfully insisted that it wasn't his mistake. They went back and forth, but Giannis stood his ground, diplomatically saying, "Coach, I promise it wasn't me." Then at halftime, Kid had the play pulled up on film. "Show me," Kid said, confident he was right, but Kid was actually wrong. The film showed it wasn't Giannis's mistake. Kid still benched Giannis for the second half. The Bucks were blowing the 76ers out, so Kidd didn't necessarily need to put Giannis back in, but he was making a point. Yeah, you're getting better, but I'm still the boss. And that's a concerning one for me. You can be a disciplinarian, but if you make a mistake, you got to own it the same way a player does. And you might be like, my bad, Giannis, you're right. Yep, appreciate it. I was wrong this time. These are the conversations we have to have as a championship potential winning team or a playoff team. Now we get on with it, but the fact that he still went passive aggressive and benched him, it's just an interesting one to me. And I think the reason why I read that one out is because we all know it's Giannis' team now, and Giannis was always going to be the guy eventually. He was just growing into that role when J. Kidd was there. But back to your point, that would have been Giannis asked in management, do we keep this guy around? And Giannis would probably remember that as probably not the guy we want around.
See, with Jason, right? I wouldn't care. Right now, I wouldn't care. Because that was 8 years ago. Now, what he should care about is what he's going to be going through with his new job. That was 8 years ago. There are people who just fuck up in a job earlier in their career. They make a mistake. It might cost them their job. It might not, but they figure it out. You know what? Okay, I got to change because I can't be like this and keep my job and have any type of sort of future with the team. But now he's coming into it where it's not easy street, but he's got one of the best players that play the game. And he's in charge. Yeah, Kidd's in charge, but this kid, he's got to be able to make it work, and he's got to figure out, because him as a player, he didn't want to get fucked with either, Kidd. He's a brilliant thinker as a player, so he wanted to figure it out. Where same thing with Luca. Now, how is he going to handle that? Now, the problem with the NBA is coaches always revert back to who they really are. They change, they go through whatever. They have to be an assistant if they get fired, or they just go to another job. They said, oh, that's behind me, I'm going to change. They change for about 2 months until the games start, and it's back to who they really are. All he needs to do is be able to manage this thing. Figure out the things that he didn't do right in his previous job and try to eliminate those things the best he can. All he has to do is hold Luca accountable, coach him, but let the kid figure some things out. And when things get really bad, just relax. Handle it internally, and things will be good. But the problem is if he reverts back to this stuff, he's got no future there. If he just sort of, if he can just sort of cut that stuff out of it, the mental warfare and things like that, if that's the case, I don't know Jason Kidd at all. I've met him 2 times, and I don't know anything about him. I've heard stories of him as a player. But if he can just sort of manage Luca, hold him accountable, hold the team accountable, but be open, deliver on things that he says he's going to deliver on, and just sort of don't be that tyrant. If that was 100% true story in that book, don't do that. Just handle these things a little bit better. They've got Don Cockstein, who, DK, you were on DK a little bit, but I was around him for 6 years. He could be a huge help to this situation. And if he does need help in these things. And I think that it's big for Jason, because if this thing goes bad, and I don't think it will, I think he'll be fine. But if it does go bad, it's going to be hard for him to get another job after this. But he's got it all set up. They've got a roster that's decent. They've got one of the best players in the game. They've got an owner that supports him. And they've got great support staff. But he's got to, in these situations, he's got to be better. He's got to eliminate these things. He's got to, going into this thing for the next few months, got to say, I got to get rid of this and this. This is what I do well. This is what I've had issues with in the past. And I can't fucking go back to this. Because 95% of coaches go back to, it's sort of like the player who had a bad attitude his whole career, and then in training camp, oh, it's all behind me, I found God, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 fucking weeks later, they're in a strip club, domestic
guarantee
abuse.
Contract comes in, yeah.
Yeah, so you just gotta, don't revert back to who you were. Just fucking try to eliminate, prioritize that stuff, eliminate the most you can, and then move on, because he could have a future here. He's royalty, but that is a skeleton in his closet that he's got to get off of, and he'll be fine.
I think he'll be all right.
Me too.
The reason why I say this, he's a high IQ basketball player and a high IQ coach. So he'd be reading the stuff that's out there, knowing that I can't go on and do this, that. And like we said, the player empowerment thing has changed. So he's reading the room. I don't think he's silly. I think he's going to have to adapt. He might have a day or two reverts back, but they're acceptable. The day or two is okay every now and then. Like you said, you got the bullets in the gun. You got 6 shots for the year. You don't want to blow all those in training camp because you're not going to have any left. So I think that'll all work out in the end. But it's just a matter of putting all that behind you, learning from it, and he'll be okay at the end of the day. But the 3-hour sessions, I think they're going to have to be a thing of the past as well, because you're not pulling that shit these days. Especially with the union rules, that there's rules around that now, within the players' union. So of how much you can be on the court between game days and whatnot. So we'll see how that space goes. But wish him all the best. Real quickly, Adam Silver had some interesting comments about China. So he was pressed about how that's all going. And he said, I'll begin by saying, of course, it's complicated. And at the end of the day, we're a US company. We're going to follow, American policy towards China. And, whether it was the Trump administration or Biden administration, at least so far, they've been encouraging trade. As you know, ultimately, we're in the export business. We export American basketball in China. And I would say that comes with its American culture as well. And that, my personal feeling is I look at the mission of the NBA, which is to improve people's lives through basketball. I think continuing to operate in China is completely consistent with our mission. To your point, putting aside how you define a fan, we have hundreds and millions of fans in China who watch NBA basketball over the course of the year. The reason why I found this interesting is just with everything going on, the NBA at the end of the day needs China, regardless of the comments of Daryl Morey back in the day, the political things going on in the world. They know their values of their franchise and their league is not going to continue to go up without China. To tell onto this, there was a separate story saying the NBA's official game ball is owned by a Chinese company accused of using Olga slave labor that has threatened to cut ties with the league for supporting pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. So that was reported as well 2 weeks ago when the league, obviously, Daryl Morey made those tweets a year ago. But that's just something I found interesting with Adam Silver. I think he's kind of more that political soft approach, even behind the scenes, even with player empowerment, even with all of that. And with saying that, I wanted to reference a once famous David Stern interview. I think we long for David Stern, a lot of us these days. He was an Iron Fist pro, but he was fun, he was smart, he was quirky, but there was no fucking around with him, right? I think he understood the relationship with China to an extent as well. But let me play this clip and then we'll have a chat. This was David Stern, and 10, 15 years ago on the Jim Rome show, getting grilled by Jim Rome. I think he handled it beautifully.
New Orleans won the draft lottery, which of course produced the usual round of speculation that maybe the lottery was fixed. I know that you appreciate a good conspiracy theory as much as the next guy. Was the fix in for the lottery?
I have 2 answers for that. I'll give you the easy one. No, and a statement. Shame on you for asking.
I understand why you would say that to me, and I wanted to preface it by saying it respectfully. I think it's my job to ask because I think people wonder.
No, it's ridiculous, but that's okay.
I know that you think it's ridiculous, but I don't think the question is ridiculous because I know people think that. I'm not saying that I do, but I think it's my job to ask you that.
Have you stopped beating your wife yet?
Yeah, I don't know if that's fair.
Why is that?
Because I think that and I know you read your emails, and I'm sure you follow things virally and on Twitter. People really do think it, whether it's fair or not.
Well, they think it because
you don't think the question's fair to ask if your fans think it?
Silly questions. I expect it to be written about, and I commented last night at my presser that there was one guy who I won't signify by naming says, I have no reason to know anything, and I don't know anything, but I tell you I believe it's fixed. Okay, that's good. Why is that? Well, because this team won it, and if that team won it, it would have been fixed also. And if that team won it, it would have been fixed also. And if every team was invited to have a representative there, and if there were 4 members of the media there, and if Ernst & Young certified it, you still think, yeah.
Yeah, well, anyway, there's that clip. I think it was pretty hilarious, Pro. What did you think about that clip? Do you remember it from back in the day?
I did remember it a little bit, man. It's, you hit it right on the head. He's got balls. He didn't care who he said things to, when he said it. He never relinquished any control of the situation, and he doesn't care. He had 2 middle fingers up. He's going to do things his way, and it was pretty cool. That was funny as shit.
And the fact that the league, I think, is reaping the rewards of what David Stern did for it. I don't think anyone can argue that what we're seeing today in the last 10 years is David Stern to a T. He's the one that, pushed towards China and understood that we need support from the biggest population in the world. Yao Ming, it all worked out perfectly timing-wise. That was a blessing in disguise to get Yao Ming in the league for 10 odd years. But as much as players hated him, I think he's the big thank you card in my opinion. And Adam Silver's reaping the rewards of it. But just interesting, two different ways of handling things. We need to handle it more delicately. I'd wonder, how would you think David Stern would fare today?
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, I don't think he would change. So here's the thing, he'd either, if he had the job still, he would be the same. He would be a little bit muzzled, a little bit, but not much. And I think that if he felt as though he couldn't operate the way he wanted to operate, he'd be out. He'd leave. But I think if he was still in capacity in the job, that he would stand up the way he's always has. He might change a few things. Obviously, he's a smart guy, legal background especially. But that he was the best. And I love that dude, man. He took no shit. I think I told you the story, Bogues, of a guy who worked for the Celtics, worked for the league and the PR department. And Friday, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, they're going down in the elevator together. And, chit chat, whatever, you say, hey, Mr. Stern, Dave, we're dealing with, we're doing some good things here, in the PR department. We just want to let you know. You'd think it's all right, bullshit. Oh, thanks, that'd be great. And then just leave. Well, he goes, oh, let's sit down, Bill, and you tell me exactly what you're working on. And he grilled him for fucking 45 minutes about what he's here's his poor prick. He just wanted to fucking say some chit chat, getting out of the elevator, in the elevator, and this fucking guy grills him for an hour on just some little cliche he threw out thinking he was just going to leave for the weekend. I love the guy, man. I fucking love him.
Yeah, he had a presence. I remember seeing him around NBA China events when we played over there with the Warriors and the Bucks, and players, as much as they talk tough when he wasn't around, when he was around, it was because he'd just fine you. He didn't care. He's like, fine.
Mm-mm.
Fine. 10K, 20K, fine. Just
in the league meetings too with owners, he didn't take any shit.
Nah, he'd go at owners. I heard about those owner meetings were nuts.
Yeah, he didn't give a fuck. He did not care. He's not going to go in the fetal position for anybody.
No.
He was a tough prick. I love that guy, man.
He is. Okay, we'll move on. We'll wrap this up real quick. We have our guest arriving soon. Just real quick to finish the basketball stuff out before we get to stats. The NBL will most likely be postponed if I'm a betting man. Lockdowns in both New South Wales and Victoria look like they're not going to end anytime soon. The season, generally pre-season starting next month. Historically, I just don't think it's going to happen. So I would probably think that it's going to be a month, maybe more, or depending on government, we could potentially see another hub deal. Who knows? But it just doesn't look like it's going to move ahead as planned. Stats useful and useless. How's this one, Pro? This is from a fan. Hi, Bogues. A stat for useful and useless. Andrew Bogut is a career 43% three-point marksman for the Australian national team on just under one attempt a game, pretty much one attempt a game, according to Real GM, outranking our guy Andrew Gazer's 39% career mark. Useful or useless, Pro?
I think it's very much fucking less. That is fucking less. All right, that is a useless fucking stat, folks. I love you to death. Fucking useless. How about you? Your own nepotism. What do you think?
Boomer Bogues. I'm a better 3-point shooter than Andrew Gaze. When I got the green and gold on, hey, it goes up. And I told you I shot it.
So you're
shot it decently well for the national team. Believe it or not, that shorter line helped me a little bit.
I think that's a better name than FIBA Patty. You Boomer Bogues. I like that. That's too bad we didn't get that 10 years ago. That would have been fucking good.
I can use it in the context of all these millennials using Boomer as well, so I'll take it either way.
Sure.
That was from Scott Freer in Adelaide. Appreciate that one, Scott. Got a good laugh out of it, and it's true, truth and humour. Next one. This came from the almighty Pro. Zach LaVine has won 4 straight Olympic games during the Olympics. This is his longest winning streak since college. Never has he won 4 games in a row in the NBA, Pro. Useful or useless?
Oof, this is a tough one, Bogues.
It's funnily useful, in my opinion.
Yes. Imagine not having a 4 fucking game winning streak. imagine like you played in the league, 7 years or so?
Yeah.
And you haven't had a 4 fucking game win streak. Now look, it's like the plus minus thing, which is totally, for the most part, fucking bullshit in my eyes. Like sometimes you're a victim of your situation. You're a victim of players you have in your team, your organization. One guy can't pull a whole team together to win games, but you think 7 fucking years you haven't, or 8 years or however, you can't pull off a 4 fucking game winning streak.
And the fact that he did it in a tournament that only had 7 games.
That's unbelievable,
6
right?
games makes it even funnier. But I think it's somewhat useful. But yeah, he's probably the other factor would be that he's played in bloody Minnesota and Chicago the last decade, so that hasn't helped. But final one, Luca Doncic, youngest player in NBA history to score a $200 million contract. He's 23 in February. Useful or useless?
Pretty. I mean, it's useful, but it's just the age thing, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it's useless because it's useful because the guy's a fucking brilliant player, he's a great player. But I mean, it's just the age thing. Like a player. So what happens when they take the 1 year out rule out? You know what I'm saying? So a younger guy gets into the league, he gets a supermax deal. The BRI is going up anyway. He's going to get $230 million, and then you're going to say, well, he's the first player, the youngest player to get. Yeah. I mean, it's useful in the sense it's talent value. I just think it's useless because it's just the luck of the draw having that age, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's kind of useless because everyone knew he was going to get that deal, and I think age irrelevant. He just got lucky with the age, and he's been a professional for, almost a decade now anyway. So I think that one's a useless one, but I thought it was interesting. What do you have, fact or fake news?
Bogues, Golden State in a sort of a weird spot these days. We talk about it all the time. Got a good got an okay roster. You got young players. Got their guys coming back, hopefully mending from the injuries. Do they go with the same, basically top 10 players on their roster, including the guys that are coming back and then the new draftees, or do they make a big move before trade deadline? Do you think that they're going to be okay with the young guys and this, or are they going to make a move
before the deadline? So that's February.
Yeah, so
wow.
do they stick with? They will stick with the top 10 players on their roster without making a major move before the trade deadline.
Fake news. I think they'll make a move. Someone from that 10 is going to have to go because I think there may be I don't know. The Iguodala signing is good for him, but he's getting older. Yeah, some shooting at the 5 spot maybe is probably the one place that they can kind of improve. Wiseman he's streaky from there, but he's not a bulk 3-point shooter or a space 3-point shooter. So I would say they're going to make a move. So fake news. So they're going to probably look to ramp up that roster a little bit and make a championship push. And I think something's brewing there. I'm not sure. I don't think they're going to ride or die. Look, with their roster as it stands, is probably still going to be very good, pending Clay's health and Steph signing and all that. But they're probably one good veteran piece or mid-tier star away from getting better, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they just signed Curry to that big deal too. I think they're going to make a move. I don't think Kerr's going to be able to handle that well with those young guys, with Wiseman and the new draftees. I think that they're going to make a move. I do, and I think you can get a pretty good player for that. We've already discussed packages and all that stuff. We don't have to do that, but that's
well, they have the pieces to do it. They have the pieces now to do it.
Yeah,
they've got the 7 and 14, which they've used their picks now on. Wiggins is always in there somewhere. So Ben Simmons has come up. So who knows?
If I'm Washington, look, that's going to be a rough deal. Kuzma, Beal.
They're not doing much down there.
Yeah, I'm telling you. If I'm them, Golden State would be very, very, we talked about this, 3 months ago. I think they're going to be wanting to make a move. I think you can get all 3 of those guys off their roster. I do, to get Beal. I think you can get Wiseman and the 2 picks, and then you'd have to take Wiggins back. I think that they would do that to get Bradley Beal, that extra score and that extra superstar, to put with those guys. I think that you can get that. Now you might have to work it out financially, add a third team. I don't know any of that lingo, but I think that's a move that they're going to be able to make.
We'll watch that space.
Yes, sir. Okay, Lakers. Westbrook, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis will play more than 75% of their games this season combined.
Oh, wow. I think Westbrook will get it. Davis hasn't had a healthy year for a while, and LeBron's getting older. So 75, I'm not great at math, but of 82 games, what is that? 60-odd games,
So 82
right?
games times 3 is 246. So they have to play...
Oh, combined, yeah. So it's 60-odd, 64, 5 games, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's around the 60s, let's just say. So let's just call it 6, 12, 18. So 180-odd games. Yeah, I don't know. I'd say fake news. I mean, they're getting older, and the problem is their roster's older. So where I see the issue being is that even if they don't get hurt early and one of their backup bench older guys does, that then means what? They're going to have to play more minutes. So that's what my concern is with this roster. They don't have any much young go-getters that are going to take big minutes to relieve those veterans. And a few of those veterans go down early, and then LeBron's all of a sudden having to carry the load more, and AD is and whatnot. And they don't have, Gasol's kind of breaking down from the center position, so you're going to have to move AD to the 5 a lot, I think, with their small ball lineups. He hates the 5, and that's when he generally gets hurt. He's at the 5 spot, unfortunately, getting knocks and whatever. So, yeah, I think it's fake news. They'll be under that number.
Yeah, I say they're under too. I think they're going to rest those guys. They're going to need those guys for the playoffs. And I don't think they're going to care about seeding all that much as long as they can get. I think, obviously they don't want to do what they did this year, but I think they want to get in. I know they're favored to win the championship, but I think they just want to get in that top 4, to get home court and then do what they got to do on their home court throughout the playoffs. So I think even if it's going to sort of mess with their number 1 seeding or what have you, go to 2 or go to 3, I think they're going to sacrifice that to keep those guys healthy, because they don't want them running out of gas, to come playoff time.
Yep.
Bogues, Boston has been a little lethargic in the offseason, in playoff, in free agency. Obviously, they made the move for Horford to try to free up money next summer. They did the same thing, they let Fournier go same way, because they're going to have some money. I think $30+ million, in my opinion, in next year in money. But they still got 2 young superstars, or so-called superstars, that have, that sort of are getting a little bit impatient, especially with how the team lasted last year, losing in the first round. Does the Boston Celtics make it out of the first round with this roster?
Ooh, I thought your question was going to be, have they been quiet? And I'd say fact, because I think they are building towards, like you said, next season. So that would be strategic. Do they get out of the first round with this roster? Fake news. They don't. I don't think they do. I think even though the East isn't a powerhouse, there's a lot of competitive teams. I think Charlotte will be better. Again, New York still up there. Chicago will be better. So we'll see a bit more out of them. So then obviously Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Philadelphia. Even I'd even put Boston in the same realm down the bottom somewhere. As probably.
They finished 7th, Bogues. They finished 7th last year, and they had Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier, even though we got them after trade deadline. So now you're at 7. Okay. Indiana didn't necessarily get better in the offseason, but they sort of stayed okay. Washington, you said Charlotte got better. Chicago got much better.
Might get a play-in. Maybe if they're lucky, they might scrape at 9 or 10 at best. That's a successful year for them, in my opinion. I don't think they're making the 8 traditional way.
Yeah.
But they are, the guru of Stevens now in the front office. Maybe he'll be coaching from the skybox in the arena. So who knows? And let's not forget, a rookie head coach. So there's a lot that can go wrong and a lot that can go well. But I'd take the under. I say they're not going to get out of the first round. You?
Yeah, I take the under. I say fake news too. They will not get out of the first round.
Easy. All right, let's welcome our guest. All right, I'd like to welcome special guest, former teammate of mine, to Rogue Bogues, David Andersen. The few nicknames, the Mayor of Frankston's the first one, and the other one is GQ. So, Pro, give him a warm welcome.
Dave, what's up, brother? How the fuck you doing today?
Doing pretty good. See, you already dropping the F-bombs.
Oh, yeah.
It's good. Keeps it real.
No doubt.
So, Dave and I played together for numerous campaigns with the Boomers. I didn't know much about you at all until 2004 in Athens. So we'll get into it a bit later, but David had left Australia at a pretty early age, was kind of the unknown. I was just coming into the national team program, so he probably didn't know much about me. But the other nickname he had was GQ. And the reason why was pretty well spelled out. The first time I met him, he had the Ray-Ban aviators, the diamond earring, the frosted tips hair, blue eyes, just GQ.
You know about the frosted tips.
Yeah, what you'd see on the front cover of GQ. So that was your other nickname. But welcome to the show, Dave. What have you been up to lately, man? What's going on?
Nothing too much. I've just been laying low, keeping out of trouble. We're kind of in lockdown, so we can't really do too much around here. I've got some investments, things I'm looking after, but after the Melbourne United stint, grabbing another championship to the cabinet. Just been taking it easy a bit. So
yeah, by
family time.
Taking another championship, we'll just run through. So I didn't know, by the way, I didn't know your middle name was Emil.
Emil, yes, Danish after my grandfather, my dad's side.
And of course, you have a Danish passport, which we'll talk about later, which was very useful for you. But you're one of the most winningest exports when it comes to Australian basketball. And the reason why I want to talk to you and get you on the show is because outside of the basketball community in Australia, you're not really that well known because you played in Europe at a time where it wasn't as accessible to Australians to watch overseas. EuroLeague games aren't on TV. We'll run through where you've played. You see, obviously you started the Frankston Blues in the mid-90s. You went to the AIS. You've been the Wollongong Hawks in the late 90s, then go over to Kinder Bologna as how old were you? 17,
I was 18-year-old, signed with Kinder Bologna.
Not a word of Italian at that time?
Not a word when I started, but I have learnt and I still do speak fluently. So
Kinder Bologna, then on to Montepaschi,
Siena,
CSKA Moscow, FC Barcelona in 2008, 2009, then the Houston Rockets. You had an NBA stint at Houston, Toronto, and New Orleans for 2 to 3 years.
2 seasons.
Then went back to Siena.
Yeah.
Bankrupted him again after you left, of course. Fenerbahce, 12-13. SIG Strasbourg. Then you went to Asvel in France, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Back to Melbourne United. Back to Asvel again.
Yeah.
Illawarra Hawks, where we got to play against each other when I was with the Kings from 2018 to 2020. Finally. Back to Strasbourg again. Then the infamous return of the Frankston Blues, full circle, and then winning a championship with Melbourne United. Yeah. So a very storied career. And before you want to butt in, Pro, I'm just going to go through. This man's one of the most winningest gentlemen around Australian basketball. 2-time NBL champion. 3-time EuroLeague champion, all EuroLeague first team, Spanish League champion, 3 times Italian League champion, 3 times Italian Cup winner, Italian Super Cup winner, Italian League Finals MVP, Italian Cup MVP, 4-time Russian League champion, 3-time Russian Cup winner, Turkish Cup winner, Turkish Cup Final MVP, French League champion, French League All-Star Game, Albert Schweitzer Tournament MVP. So wherever you go, you seem to win, Dave.
Bit of a talisman, some people would say. I'm the lucky charm. A lot of teams probably did bring me in for that thing because, I know how to glue guys together, get everyone working on the same page, and it's worked well. Obviously, over the year, been fortunate. Great coaches, great players, great teammates, and just things blended together. So it's one of those things you just kind of do what you can and seize the opportunities. And I was lucky over my career just to be able to do it all. So,
yeah, Pro. What do you know about Dave from your scouting network?
Probably not.
God damn, I know too much about Dave, actually.
Oh, that's a good thing to hear.
Yeah, so when he played in Bologna, when I worked for Tim Grover, I worked out a guy named Rashad Griffith that was one of your teammates.
He was my roommate back in Kinder Bologna. Big 7-foot dude.
Yeah, so he was a big dude, teddy bear, went to Wisconsin, second round pick, Bogues. Never went to the NBA. One of the best players in the country in high school, and then played with David.
Yeah.
And David also played with Ginobili when he was over in Bologna. And I actually had him on my fantasy team. I'm the only fucking American in the history of America to play EuroLeague fantasy. I had him in. I got a love-hate thing with David. He saved me in 05-06. Because he averaged something like 15 and 6, I think. Yeah. So he was a cheap pickup and he fucking produced like a motherfucker. The second time he fucked me and bent me over, when he played for Barcelona, I was expecting big things. He did win a championship, no doubt about it.
He won a chip and went to Final Four. I balled out in that Final Four too. I had like 20 points on both
teams. Fantasy team.
We didn't win. I wasn't a huge fantasy. I know, I'm not a fantasy guy player. I'm more of a big time, get it done in the big games, stat lines, not really feeling.
Yeah, you're playing. I got nothing against your playing. You're a fucking solid player, pure winner. But on my fantasy league, you were great for me in 04.
Yeah.
Not so great for me when you went to Barcelona. But, I mean, What I want to know, Bogues, seriously, and David, for me, like playing with Ginobili, playing with Rigaudot, playing the CSKA Moscow with those great teams with Holden. Because when I started in basketball, David, I was a scout for the Boston Celtics, and I handled our international stuff. So I would watch about 15, 20 EuroLeague games a week, on VC, on tapes and DVDs and stuff. Yeah. And I loved that CSKA team that you were on. And then Bologna, I just followed before I got into the league, and just, playing, like, how was it to play with like Ginobili and those guys early on in your career as a young kid and sort of growing up through that sort of process?
Well, it was great. I mean, Ginobili back then, that was when he was coming up. He was just a young fella. He played in Reggio Calabria the season before, which is like a medium-level Italian league team, and they were actually made the playoffs, and we played against him in a 5-game series to go through. And that's when they kind of signed him after that. And he was just, he was young, he was learning the ropes, but he came out exploding that year. And, I think he was EuroLeague final MVP. And we won everything. We won the Italian Cup, the Italian League, and the EuroLeague. So it was a huge year, and to play with him then and see him, because he was growing up quick, and he wasn't he was a great person too. We used to eat pre-games every time before the game. We go to this little Italian restaurant near to where he was, and we'd always eat and stuff and catch up a lot. And it was cool. He was a real good guy to hang out with off the court as well as on the court. And yeah, just great working ethic. Great at, being a good teammate, never really demanded like things. It wasn't like a superstar like, oh, I need the ball 20 times. It was more like he just gets his work in and does what he needs to win. And the other guys on the team, like, Rashad, he was he was a superstar. I mean, for us, he was like the pillar. He's a big moving man, just killed it in the center. And I learned a lot from him because I had to bash up against him in training, and I was just a skinny, 6'11", 7-foot guy, and I had to stretch him out. It was like playing against Shaq, so you had to get creative to play against him in training. But actually, that year was a great. I was still young. I was 19, I think, that year, and we had a young team. We had Marko Jaric as well, one of the Yugoslavian superstars. He played in the NBA. Antoine Rigaudot, the king of France, we called him in Bologna. Yeah,
Bellinelli too.
Bellinelli was on the team. He was a young fella. He was only 16, I think, back then. So I've told people about that because they're like, oh, you played with Bellinelli. And I was like, yeah. He used to play way back in the day. So, all these guys I've played with along the time, and it's you see them go on, and you're like, wow, it's great. It's amazing to watch them step up and get better and better. So, but that team was special. Like I said, we won what do they call that? The King's Crown or whatever it is. I think it's the 3 championships, everything you can, and it was a crazy year. But and then that led into like other things, and obviously kept going strong. So yeah. Good times.
Yeah, that CSKA Moscow team too. Now you come with like what, Marcus Brown and Antonio Granger and Holden.
Yep, that was when I got there. The first year we stacked it up because we had the Final Four was in Moscow that year, and we actually lost the Final Four to Luis Scola and Tau Victoria, or they were called Tau Ceramica Victoria. That was their sponsor back then. It was in Moscow. I remember the semi-final. We lost the game, and man, you should have seen it. It was like D-Day. Everyone was just terrible. Like, guys were thinking the general manager or the director or president of the team came in after the game. He threw his phone against the wall, smashed it. Like, everyone was seeing, like, it was the whole world crumbled. And we only lost like 3 games the whole season, and 2 of them were at the Final Four. So they were just.
You were a super team.
It was a super team. Like, you should have seen. This was like some Rocky stuff, Drago, and they're testing him and stuff like that. We were doing all this crazy testing, like they had the oxygen tanks on us. They were blood testing us every 3-4 weeks to make sure we were all good. And it was a hell of a ride that season. Like I said, we lost, I want to say, the 2 game, one in the top 16, and then like at the Final Four, we lost a couple. And the Russian League, I don't think we lost. We went on a 35-game winning streak through the start of the season. And it was, it was on, and it was actually a great year for me personally too. I was stepping up. I think I made EuroLeague All-Star 5 that year, but yeah, it was obviously disappointing to lose that Final Four and just crushed everyone.
Let's circle back, Pro. So I want to start this. You can get to your EuroLeague grilling later, but I want to start your journey just for there's a lot of kids that listen to the podcast. They have to mute out half a Pro, but they listen.
Kids be dropping F-bombs too, mate. You got to watch out. These kids have got some mouth on them now.
Yeah, we've blamed Pro for all of that.
Yeah.
No question.
So your journey wasn't a pathway taken by very many,
No.
especially back then, right?
Yeah.
Now maybe a little bit more, but it's still not really one that many Australian kids take. So
Yeah.
you went to the AIS, you played a season professionally with the Wollongong Hawks, but I read that you had some pretty big college offers. And UCLA, Arizona, anyone else?
UCLA, Arizona. There was a couple others as well. I can't remember. Those are the big ones. I remember talking to them. Luke Olsen was the coach back then.
That was pre-signing with Wollongong, right?
This was pre-signed, but, for me, I kind of, NBL was pretty big back then too. In the 90s, you got to remember NBL was like big time. We were earning. I remember they brought in a special rookie cap trying to smothering my money down.
The David Andersen rule.
Yeah, because I was like, I was competing against guys like Paul Gasol in Schweitzer tournament. I got the MVP that time, and he beat us because they won the game, the gold, championship game. But so I was, stepping up. My game was elevating, and I was getting interest overseas as well. So, and the Euro League. So then the NBL brought in this cap thing, 40 grand, cap, and I signed. I remember I had to get the deal done before midnight before the cap came in. And I don't know if I signed with the Magic originally, Southeast Melbourne Magic, and then it all flipped on itself because the Magic merged with the Giants and to make the Titans, and I got squeezed out of that deal. Gorge was the coach. I remember he came down and visited me after, and it was all doom and gloom and kind of, sorry, man. He still to this day apologizes and stuff, to my old man mainly. So, but so then I was off to Wollongong. But I had the chances to go to college ball, but for me, it was more, I wanted to become a pro. I felt like I was that kind of player. I didn't want to go to the college system and get stuck. I mean, I was a different kind of big too. I was more of a flexible big, I call it, like a stretch big. I could move, I could play more offense. I wasn't really a banger as such. And back then, the bangers were big. I'd always play against huge Americans that were just like shoulders wider than me, bodies heavier than me, just smashing against them. And I had to get real creative with my game just to succeed. So it isn't until recently, you get these long, lanky, skilled bigs. Yeah. It's changed. So for me, I didn't want to get stuck in that shoe hole, college system where I'd be like, you got to become a banger, you got to screen, roll,
which would have happened,
which would have probably happened. So I felt like that's why I took my trade to pro, and I didn't mind.
Were you close to college at all, or not really?
Nah, not really. I had a couple of conversations. Like I said, I didn't do any visits. I probably should have, because I hear they're hell of fun.
As a young fella,
but nah, I just kind of, it all happens pretty quick, and I kind of, just rolled out into being a pro. I felt like I wanted to, earn money and always had that kind of business hat on. So I was like, I'll earn some money. I don't really like school that much. I mean, I wasn't that guy who was going to school and academic and stuff like that either. So,
well, it's no secret, pro, that Wollongong Hawks are still in financial trouble 20 years later after David Andersen's rookie contract.
Hey, man, that cost me money because I signed with the Magic. I could have signed with them originally, but I went to the Magic and then came back to them for a discounted price. So I ain't bankrupt them.
So then how did the whole going over Europe thing come about? Because it's kind of a strange deal. I'm sure they saw you at Schweitzer, but was that network created while you were in Wollongong or from the Albert Schweitzer tournament, or did you just...
Yeah, bit of both, probably, because I played a lot of tours with the junior teams. You probably did quite a few as well in Europe and stuff. So they see you and you get on the scouting reports. And when I chose my agent, I remember I could have gone with an Australian guy or this American, and originally it was Leon Rose. He's gone on to big things now. I think, he's the president.
Not return your calls anymore?
New York Knicks. No, he does actually. He's my man, because I used to always give him a bit of crap because, when I'd be overseas or, weathering down, I'd be like, oh, you don't want to talk to me, because he signed some big players originally. So, he had Eddie Jones, these guys, Carmelo, Chris Paul, these massive stars. So I used to call him up once in a while and be like, hey, man, you don't answer my calls. You always voicemail and call me back. But we still talk. Anyway, long story short, I got Leon Rose as my agent, and he had obviously the pass, the wings to spread to Europe and other parts of the world. And so basically as I turned pro, he knew that I could get a Danish passport, and a lot of the other teams around the world. My sub-agent, Kenny Grant as well, they worked in partnership, and they knew that I could become a European citizen or, play with a European passport, which means you'd like a local.
Which is huge for teams because back then, was it only 2 internationals
Two or even 2 Americans or 2, like Yugoslavia then and all those Eastern Bloc, well, they were all regarded as imports too when I first got over there. So you couldn't have now you can have like a couple Serbs or whatever and Croatian, and then...
So hugely valuable. If you didn't have that Euro passport, it probably would have been very hard to get over.
It would have been hard. I would have been an import. Like I know Matty Nielsen came over a few years down the track and he was regarded as an import. But he was already killing it in NBL, being NBL MVP and blah, blah, blah. But for me, playing that, I was regarded as a European. So even on EuroLeague teams, I was European, and it just helped out a lot. And obviously, it also cultured me. I don't get it twisted. I mean, I'm Australian, but I have the European background. I got a lot of family in Denmark. So when I went to Europe, I was open to that. And that's probably one of the reasons why I was successful in Europe. I was culturally open. Like, I learned Italian. I tried to fit in every time I went to a different nation, like, Russia or France.
It's kind of an oxymoron being from Frankston.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's pretty, it is. But in saying that, you get out of Frankston, but you always go back. So it's a great part of the world. But no, it was one of those things. So for me, it was a totally different path, for me to go overseas in Europe. But it had few things to factor in. Obviously, the passport that came about in my first year in Wollongong. So, around Christmas time, I think it was, or January, this is mid-season. We're pursuing my passport because my agent's saying, listen, you've got a lot of interest from overseas. You could sign a decent deal over there and stuff. So I was like, all right. And then I was playing in the under-20 world champs in 99. So I was, I just followed that a little bit further. And then towards the end of the season, I got my passport and my agent secured this massive deal with Kinder Bologna, which was like a 4-year deal, for, I think it was like a couple $1 million or something, unheard of money. So it was like, I was like, wow, of course I'm going to go. And Kinder Bologna was like one of the best teams in Europe then. So it was a great chance for me to learn, for me to be, to grow as a player and obviously earn some really good coin.
Yeah, and the culture piece I think is huge as well for kids. Learning the language, different foods.
Definitely.
You're more Euro to me than you are Australian, in my opinion.
Definitely.
Just because you've seen the world.
I've lived over there for 17, 18 years of my 23 years playing as a pro. So, yeah, I adjusted well to it. I've always been, it was a bit of advice from Coach Messina, actually. I remember sitting down the first year we got there, he put a list up on, these successful players and these not so successful ones. And he was like, the demeanor, the lesson here is these guys tried to learn Italian and try to fit into the culture. These guys had no chance, I hate to say it, but some of these Americans, they just come over, they want to earn a check and get out of there. Whereas for me, it was like, no, I signed a 4-year deal. I committed. I got a tutor. I got things. I was learning Italian. I was lucky. I had my brother with me, Shuey, my 1-year older brother, lived with me while I was young. So kind of that kept me, level-headed as well. So all these factors come into it, and I enjoyed it. I really thrived in that kind of scenario. European basketball suited me a lot too.
Yeah, no doubt. And just with skills, the skill level that you had, it was just a perfect fit. But it's just a testament to I'd never heard of you as a kid. I mean, back then the internet wasn't really
we
around.
didn't have internet. Remember it was dial-up stuff back then.
Yeah. So
you didn't have things. I used to have to write letters to friends back in Australia. Writing letters, calling cards. There was no FaceTime or this kind of stuff. It was all pretty remote.
But then, the only reason I knew your name was just because it was on an AIS locker, really, because
with that bogus ass picture of me.
Yeah, all the lockers at the AIS they have every guy that's been there, and whatever locker you get, it has every guy that's had that locker. So we all
what
heard your name.
What number were you at AIS?
4. Yeah, number 4. I can't even remember.
Andrew Luke.
I changed halfway through, but I just remember we didn't really know the story. It wasn't really told to us about your journey, and like I said, I only ran into you in 2004 when you
when we met for the Olympics.
You joined us halfway through the Olympics. I'm like, who the hell is this dude? Because everyone we didn't know, and so we go to the 2004 Athens Olympics. It's my first year, and we're doing all this prep stuff, and Dave doesn't come to the prep stuff because you were in the midst of signing the CSKA deal, right?
I was playing finals with the Montepaschi Siena. Then we were winning the championship. It was their first time, second year in First Division Italian, and we're on top of the league, and we're in line to win the thing, and I'm balling out. So yeah, it was like we were going. I missed all the
Yeah, we're wondering
preparation.
who the hell is this dude? And then you still made the 12 without coming to camp, essentially,
Yeah.
because you made the
I think
pre-Euro tour.
Yeah, the Euro tour.
And everyone was like, this guy must be really good. So I remember all the pub, and we never heard about you. And then, that was the first time we'd met him.
I remember rolled into. I remember it was like a training camp in Italy somewhere in Pesaro or something.
Yeah, it
like
was.
that.
Yeah,
remember?
yeah.
And we were out there. So yeah, I remember coming in, and it was like, I mean, I came off. Put things short, I was in the finals campaign, and I had the manager of the team telling me he wanted me to fly out like a day after the finals game. And I was like,
To
are you
Australia.
serious? To Australia to come back to a camp. And I was like, bro, are you serious? Like, I've got to, like, we're about to win the Italian Championship, first time for this team, and it's massive, and I'm playing well. Like, and there's no way I'm going to jump on a plane for 24 hours, come there, training camp for like 5 days
Come
straight.
back.
And then come back with you guys 2 days later. I was like, I'll meet you here, but let me talk to, because Gorge didn't really know me much either. I mean, I think Shane Hill might have got in his ear a bit because, he knew Europe and knew what the hell was going on. And then when he saw that we won the championship and I was MVP of the final series, he was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I think we should really look at him. He's big time,
Yeah.
So, and we went to the Final Four. That's another thing that year with Siena. It was huge. That year for Siena, we
Just out of
did some
nowhere,
crazy things. Like, Siena was, like I said, second year in Italian First Division. We went Final Four in Israel, and he won the Italian Championship. So it was a big year. And like I said, transitioning into that Olympic campaign was hard. And touche on you too. I didn't know jack shit about you. All I knew was you was some big dude playing in Utah, I think it was at the time. And I was like, oh, who's this guy? Like, look at him. Then we started playing, and I was like, oh, yeah, he's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, we had some battles.
Yeah.
Pro, you got anything?
Yeah, I think I call bullshit on this whole Italian thing. I just think he wanted to be closer to Gucci and fucking Armani and go, be
It's
Mr.
true.
fucking GQ.
It's true.
Yeah,
Well, I
fuck that
came out
shit.
of Frankston, mate. You'd be proud. I didn't have no Gucci or nothing. I got to Bologna. And
How do we explain Frankston to Pro?
Oh, wow. I don't know. It's hard to... It's actually a beautiful place to live, but it's pretty rough. I grew up with some questionable people, but,
So Frankston's about an hour from the city, or 50 minutes, as Dave says. 58 minutes, right?
Yeah, a lot of community houses, I suppose is the way to put it.
But it's in a beautiful part of Melbourne. It's
Yeah.
on the water. There's a beach, but then there's like there's really rough parts of it.
Yeah, there is. There's rough parts and
and
good
then
parts,
really
like
good parts.
anywhere. Exactly.
Yeah, but
like
it's
some
got
people,
a bad stigma.
Yeah, a lot of people hang shit on it. Like I remember even Gorgon coming down to visit me after the whole, cut out of the deal thing. He was like, Frankston, oh God, is that even metro? Like, is that country? What are you on down there? And I'm like, yeah, it's regarded as metro, mate, and it's not that far and da-da-da. But yeah, everyone who comes down this way, they just say it's beautiful, and it is beautiful. It's on the beach and it's all that. But there is a lot of humble beginnings. Like people are, regarded as wealthy.
South
There's
Central
probably
Melbourne, I guess.
bit of drug problems as well in the community.
They had the legal drug house there. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's still there.
I don't know, probably is. I mean,
Yeah, there was a place you could shoot up legally, Pro. They had a little house, but it's kind of a suburb that has a bad stigma about it, kind
Exactly.
of like Yobbo, which would be like hick kind of
redneck
stigma
kind of
about it.
trailer park
But-
kind of stigma.
but it's
yeah.
on a beautiful part of Melbourne, and there's good parts and bad parts. And if you came and visited and I put you in Frankston, you'd think it's beautiful because you wouldn't know the stigmas.
And it is,
around
and there's like you said, there's some bad areas which give it the bad stigma, and there's some bad apples that ruin it for a lot of others. But in hindsight, like I wouldn't grow up anywhere else because it's a great little spot. But yeah, some people are a bit like, oh, I wouldn't drive around Frankston late at night, kind of thing. And I'm like, well,
It's fine.
Doesn't worry me.
Yeah, I heard when you get Uber in Melbourne, I guess you got an armored car option, so you don't get shot.
That's only in Moscow, mate.
And leading on to Moscow, actually, that's what I wanted to ask you. You've got some crazy experiences, obviously playing all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a few of have you had any life-threatening experiences, like with fans, pre or post-game, or on the road, or anything that you thought, like, ooh, this is a bit kind of testy, like I want to kind of, we need to stay in the locker room for 30 extra minutes, or anything like, because I've heard stories from, like, Alex Marriage has some crazy stories from
Yeah, I
Serbian
know where you
games.
got Serbian games. They're a bit wilder there. I mean, yeah, you get the crazy European fans, but it's not really life-threatening. I mean, it'd take a fair bit to rattle me in that sense. But yeah, no, I remember a couple of times, like we used to always get police escorts to games. Like a lot of people didn't know about this stuff. Like we'd be flying through cities like Athens with police escorts or, bus and stuff. And, because when you're playing against Olympiacos and Panathinaikos, they're always, slamming. They've got the flares at the game. They're throwing coins, heating up crap, So you always got to be on your toes. You don't want to cop a coin in the head because that'll put you out for most of the game. Especially nowadays. They'd probably have you do that concussion testing thing. You'd be done for like 2 weeks in Australia.
Yeah.
But no, I've seen teammates cop them in the head and stuff like that. And you always got the barricades. But nothing where like a fan jumped over and wanted to fight me because, that usually doesn't end well. Like, look what happened to Ron Artest, that kind of shit. So.
Yeah, well, Shane Hill tells a story that he was it Greece or Italy? Did he play in Italy?
He played Italy as well.
Italy
for
or
a little
Greece?
stint.
And he was with a team that was on the brink of relegation. And he said that
Imola.
they had their final game. They had to win to stay alive, to stay in the first division, and they lost.
Oh, jeez.
And he says they've gone out to the car park to drive out, and it was one of those car parks where there was an elevated part for the fans to walk around, and the car park was kind of under.
Oh, God.
And they all had eggs. And he says as soon as players from their own team were walking out, they were just getting pelted with eggs.
Really?
And they got to jump in their car real quick, full of eggs, and then as they drove out, pelted with eggs. So that's
the fans are passionate. I get to that. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say we never got pelted with eggs. I mean, there was always times when they give you crap and stuff like that. But the funny one in Italy, we used to crack me up at the start of the season. So we played in Reggio Calabria again, the one that Ginobili played in. The first game of the season, we go and start the game, circled around, jump ball. All of a sudden, all the fans start launching dunny roll on the court, like toilet paper. Just thousands, like hundreds and thousands of these rolls of toilet paper just keep flying on for 5 minutes. And I guess the floor sweepers are ready for it because they're like out there quick with their floor wipers, just pushing them all off the court and and it delays the game for 15, 20 minutes. And then all of a sudden, as soon as you're about to go again, someone else throws another one just to.
And what was the mindset? Was it tradition or something?
It's just a tradition, I think. It's like for the start of the season, It wasn't a bad thing. You don't feel bad, but like I said, they're a lot more passionate. They're chanting, they're singing, they're doing crazy things. Probably the scary one I do remember kind of was going to play the Final Four in Israel with Siena that year of the Athens Olympics, 2004. I remember rocking in there. So we flew. Our fans didn't go because this is when Israel was in war pretty much. And we rocked in. We had separate buses straight off the plane. They had snipers and full security detail with machine guns escorting us off the plane. Passport checks right at our bus. Team bus was right there. So this is Final Four. So you got the 4 best EuroLeague teams in. And we're going along the freeway and they're shutting off everything like we're the presidents of bloody Israel coming through. And they get to the hotel. We're staying at the Hilton down on Tel Aviv or whatever it is. And it's like, you see the snipers up on the top and you're kind of thinking to yourself, Jesus, what the hell have we gotten into here? Nothing bad ever happened. It was just like, they had to put on the measures in case. So
it's still confronting though, right?
Oh,
Coming from Australia, we don't see a gun ever, really, unless
you're seeing like snipers and stuff on top of buildings and shit like this. So that was it was eye opening. Definitely, there was a lot of those kind of things. But in terms of actually going to myself, oh my God, I'm going to die.
Well, not so much die, but
we'll
put sauce on it. But just as far as hey, we've been recommended to, I think Alex played a game where they're like, you guys need to stay in the locker room for an hour after the game. Don't come out.
Yeah,
we're going to wait for
that. Would have been that partisan.
Yeah, we're going to wait for fans to clear out. I know a friend of mine. I think it was Damir Makota. He said that when he played for Tabona Zagreb, whenever they'd play in Serbia against Partizan or Red Star, and they'd bus over, there would be cars at the border of the countries that would follow the bus and be throwing rocks at him through their car, really hanging out of the car windows, pelting rocks.
Yeah.
He said he then got to the hotel in Belgrade and they had their ultra fans on the street with drums and the whole night.
Really?
So these dudes couldn't sleep. He said the whole night they were chanting, and police police didn't even care.
Yeah.
And they're just chanting the whole night, night before game day. So these guys are getting 1 hour sleep, rolling into the game, and just notorious
for crazy shit. Yeah. We got that a bit in Turkey as well with Istanbul,
fire alarms.
Fenerbahce. Yeah, they always do trying to disturb you. We used to get the prank calls to the hotels too. So you'd be trying to have a siesta on game day, and then you get these guys calling up and just screaming down the phone, "No fucking Andersen, hope you have a bad game, I'll kill you." You're like, what the hell, dude? You hang up and then how does a hotel let the call come through? I don't know. But anyway, just those little kind of pesky things, it didn't really worry me too much. So but the fans are good. I like the passionate fans like that. They were fun. Like some of the way they chant, the way they sing your songs and do that kind of stuff, it really makes you want to play better and do better. I mean, it's a double-sided sword because then if you do lose,
they're passionate too.
They're ripping you one and they're telling you you literally can't go out and eat and stuff like that. But then if you win, they're like, oh, you're the king. Like, so it's like, wow, yeah, this is awesome. But yeah, some places you got to be a bit wary of like crazy fans. I heard the Greek ones are probably the worst. Like the Olympiakos Panathinaikos rivalry was massive.
Yeah.
You would have heard about that, wouldn't you, Pro?
Yeah, for sure. I just got back from Greece a few weeks ago, and they say it's just deadly. Like those fans in those games are ridiculous. I remember in Italy, actually, in 2004, I want to say it was, I went over to scout when I was in Boston. I worked the Treviso big man camp and then the Euro camp.
Yep.
Yeah, in the Euro camp. A couple of stories out of that. First, we went to see Benetton versus Carlos Delfino. I forgot the team he played for. He might have played Bologna. I'm not sure the team.
Yeah, but anyway, he was 42 though. He was in 42 to Bologna.
Fortitudo.
Cross-town rival of what my team was. Kinder was Kinder and 42.
They had, it was a playoff game. It was like middle of June and like late June actually. And they had armored guards, Bogues, in the visitor section, all the way down the aisle, down the aisle.
Yeah, that's
and then with machine guns. And there was guys with like no shirt on, painted faces, just giving the arm and finger to the opposing fans, and didn't even watch the fucking game.
No, they
and then
don't.
After the game, they threw M80s on the court. We had to get escorted out. I thought I was gonna die. Actually,
right.
I mean, it was the scariest I've ever been. Besides missing a meal a couple of years ago, that was probably the scariest I've ever been. Ever. Like M80s, like borderline dynamite on the courts.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
They're true.
Great game.
I remember they'd always section off a part of the stadium. So you had the big 5,000, 6,000 seat stadium, and they'd always section off a part for the rival fans because they'd always come in buses and they'd usually be getting drunk as hell, high as hell, and come into the game just ready to go. And so they'd come in and like we'd be warming up and you hear them just coming in with drums and stuff, chanting. Guys got their shirts off, especially I bet you this one in playoff game, it's June, it's hot. I'm sure they're just there just trying to make trouble pretty much. So they put the riot police on either side of them, trying to box them in, keep them away from the other fans because they call them like the ultras. Like, in football, they're even more crazy, I feel. But yeah, they used to go.
They keep a massive gap of seats, right? So they can't get because they try to get to each other eventually.
Yeah,
don't they?
They try usually the ultras will be this end, and then our other ultras will be the other end, so they can't think. But they start singing at each other, swearing, and then they usually try and meet up in the car park afterwards. Like their buses, like the ones that the opposition fans come in, they come in like escorted as well. They usually have a couple of police cars with them to stop them getting messed up. It's pretty full on, but it creates an air of like uncertainty about it. Makes you appreciate the game.
How passionate it is.
Yeah,
the closest I experienced to that was the Athens Olympics, where we fucking happened to manage to draw Greece in Athens for the opening game of the Olympics.
That was crazy, right? That was bullshit.
Getting spat at and getting run out of the tunnel. And that was my first experience, like in real Euro. I did college, where it's like it's abusive in college and it's more creative, like
heckling.
In college is more they'll make a sign of like hang shit about a kangaroo, like it's just you're just like well who gives a fuck. But that was like
they used to call me Kangarino di Merda in Italy, the opposition team 42, which means shitty kangaroo or whatever it is.
Yeah, straight away,
Straight
kangaroo puns. But that's Europe was, but man, that was a whole nother deal. And I was like, it'd be great to play in front of, but it's hard to play against sometimes where they're just. They're pretty intimidating, and you got shit getting thrown at you.
Oh, yeah. So there was one game I remember in Italy, just because they're coming to me now, in Can 2, I remember, and the fans, the ultras were sitting behind the basket. So you can imagine, like, we were down a little bit, and they were up behind the basket. And so we're playing in fourth quarter. We're up by, like, 4 or 5 points or something. It's a close game. We should have been up by, like, 15. And then I'm shooting free throws. And the fans, like these guys, are jumping on the bloody support of the basket. So the basket is going up and down. And the ref's giving me the ball. And I get the ball and I'm looking at the ring and it's going up and down. I'm like, ref, what the fuck? He looks at me like, what you want me to do? I was like, what the fuck? So I'm shooting at this bloody thing. I actually make 1 of 2 and we were still up by like 5. We end up winning. But I was like, what the hell? Where in the world could you, like these fans were just literally jumping up and down, screaming names at me,
just moving the basket.
Yeah, just moving the basket. I'm like, ref, can't you see the basket's moving? You need to get them out. So, but no, they're crazy, the fans over there and stuff like that. It's a different thing, but it creates fun. I mean, it makes you more
good atmosphere.
Passionate, concentrated.
And then going on from Europe, I read some comments that you made previously.
Yeah.
You then an NBA was always a dream of yours as a kid.
Yeah, definitely.
And-
like, everyone, you would have experienced growing up. You wanted to be an NBA star. I mean, that's
Not
passion.
really. See, I was the opposite. I thought it was like a unicorn. I thought it was like this
Too
pipe.
far.
I thought it was like like great. Like I'm
Yeah.
at home. Oh yeah, I'd love to be in the NBA, but like, I didn't think it was realistic for me. I thought like if someone pays me money in the NBL, I'm fucking happy, right? So I didn't really think it was an achievable dream, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's the same. I've always told my stories. I've just kept raising the bar. I never thought I'd be a pro. Never thought I'd go to college, or never thought I'd do these things, and just kind of kept going.
But I guess that time came in, what was it, 2009?
Yeah.
And you were in that unique situation, similar to probably Jock Landale right now. He'd be the current guy where you had to essentially leave money on the table to take that experience.
Well, yeah, I was balling back then, so I don't know if you know the full story. Like, I got drafted by Atlanta back in 2002 when I was 22. That's the eligibility then. And drafted in the second round, so they held my rights. But then I started really balling in 2004, the year of the Olympics. I started balling and signing bigger deals. I signed a huge deal in Seska. Ended up staying there for 4 years. And everyone was talking. There was always talk about me maybe going to NBA, especially after that first season. But I was like, I'm earning big money. I'm going to take a pay cut. I have to wait to, the veterans camp.
Yeah,
in September, October, and I'm like,
can't leave that money on the table.
Yeah, I can't leave, and then I'm not guaranteed anything. I might get an NBA minimum, which would be taking like a $2 million pay cut, and I'm like, oh no, screw this. I'm just going to ball out and do my thing, and I'm enjoying this and winning with Seska. So it wasn't until Barcelona, playing at that really high level for 5 years and winning a lot, and then my agent Leon worked some magic and got the Houston Rockets on board to sign like a 3-year thing with a trade with Atlanta and stuff like that. And it wasn't a huge, it was still a pay cut. I still probably took $1 million off my salary just to go play NBA, which is usually the other way around. You think NBA, you think you get paid to play in NBA. So, but it was a dream of mine, like growing up, and I always see other players and you wanted to aspire to it. And I didn't want to leave, no box unchecked. So I was like, no, I'm pretty comfortable financially. I'd invested a lot of money and I've done really good. So I was like, no, I'll take this punt and go over to America and see if I can make it. So,
yeah, it's a sliding door moment. It's similar to Jock. Jock was getting massive offers from Turkey and a few other clubs. Yeah. And all in all, he's got a 1-year guarantee with a partial on his second, and he's potentially leaving €1 million on $1 million USD, which would be tax free as well.
It's true, exactly.
On the table. So that, it's for people out there, it's a sliding door moment where sometimes you have to give it up to have that experience. How did you were only in the NBA for a couple of years or 3 years.
Yep.
How was that experience for you? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about your game? Talk us through all that.
It was great. Obviously I went to Houston. I was kind of replacing Yao Ming, because he was injured. He had a bad foot. And so we're trying to help out in that regard. Totally different kind of player as well. So, but it was good, coming from Europe and you go to an NBA and it's like, they look after the players really well. Europe's a bit more of a dictatorship. The coach dictates when you eat as a team, you got to do this, got to do that. There's no thing. NBA is all on you pretty much. And I was cool, and the funny one was going to the rookie camps and stuff like that. I was 29 years old. I've earned a boatload of money. I've invested it. I'm probably more mature than any of these other guys in the room, and here we are hearing about groupies and how you got to worry about girls and stuff. And I'm like, well, I kind of got my missus already. I'm already sorted. I don't need to hear all this crap. And they're telling you about investing in property. Don't do this, da da da. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So that was 3 days wasted of my life when I went to New Jersey for that. But after that, getting to Houston and meeting my new teammates, like I had a guy, Luis Scola, who was an international Argentinian, the don of Argentinian basketball. Shane Battier was another real good teammate of mine. So I played with these guys, and then Chase, we'd always go out and eat on the road, and it was good. The team, was quite well. We clicked pretty well, and but the NBA is such a business, or such a beast. It just, you play every game, and I remember in Europe, you'd have a big game and you can kind of milk it for a week or two. You'd be like, yeah, I'm good. I kind of don't need to be too concentrated in the next one. NBA, you play one good game and then it's like, you're feeling on top of the world. You want to talk to people about it. You're like, shit, I just got 17 points or whatever. I remember. And then it was like, you get on the team bus and everyone's already talking about the next game tomorrow night. And it's just like, shit, you really don't celebrate it too much. You kind of monotone. And I realized that's what the NBA is a bit like. You just got to keep at a steady pace and go about work, and you have a big game this night and then the next night you're playing against another huge name. So you're like, wow, it just kind of, it's a hard league to to succeed in. And I take my hat off to those guys, the superstars who play 35 minutes a game, night in, night out. I don't know how they do that. So for me, it was a bit of an adjustment, and I thought I did pretty good, but, obviously got swallowed up in that trade stuff and things like that.
Yeah, and that's probably that's your point of, you can never get too high or too low in an NBA season, right?
It's so tough, man, like for players in your situation, because here you are 29, you've done a lot already on the international scene. You're a seasoned pro in that end, but you're still trying to get your NBA legs together and to sort of figure some things out. And like you said, you can't go through that. You can't get too high or too low, because you got to survive every day, and you got to make a name for yourself a little bit. And it's a different
hard.
situation. We've had,
Yeah, it was hard, learning it and just adjusting to that whole thing. And you get the rookie treatment too, because you're like from the refs, like you get a couple rough calls, and you're going up against superstars every other night, and they scout you a lot better probably, and they're understanding your tendencies as you get going. But yeah, I had my moments. And
did you get rookie hazed?
Rookie hazed.
Do they have you
I had to do. You can. You probably YouTube my ass. The dodgy Houston Rockets dancing. They made us doing like
29-year-old.
Yeah,
what was it? 12-year pro at the time.
Oh mate, it was crazy. I was like, what the fuck? So we're doing dancing and even like we did have to sing the national anthem in front of like our high corporate sponsors, and then like they said, the dance off in front of all the fans, like 5,000 fans and stuff like that. But it wasn't too much. We didn't like get popcorn in my car or any crazy shit like that. I mean, it was pretty low key for me. There was a couple other younger rookies as well, so they kind of copped it a bit more. So, but yeah, it was an adjustment, but it was fun and it was great. NBA lifestyle is awesome. Like, you're flying around things. It's kind of real. It's all happens really fast for you. So you kind of just got to take a deep breath at times and, get your legs under you, because it just you can get swallowed up pretty quickly. But I really enjoyed it, and it definitely grew me as a player as well. Learning the 3-point line as well, the NBA 3, that was far compared to Europe back then. It was another bit. So, but I adjusted to that pretty quickly.
What you got, bro?
The day to day, David, dealing with that and not really, because you were on 1-year deals, David. Was that your deal?
My original one was a 2+1 with Houston. So I was thinking I was going to be there 3 years. Dumbass David was here.
Yeah, sure.
Signed a deal for 2+1. So I'm thinking 3-year deal. Yep, I'm here for good. I even bought a house in Houston like that.
Oh, wow. Did you?
Yeah. I thought I was there. I didn't know. And then I come to find out that Houston is a wheel and dealing team. Daryl Morey loves to wheel and deal. And I was like,
oh fuck, yeah.
So that.
Actually, Bogues, David doesn't want to tell us this, but his first NBA jersey, instead of Andersen on the back, it said player to be named later on his jersey. So, 'cause they knew it.
Probably right.
Yeah, it's tough, dude. It's tough. Like I did that. I was director of player development with the Dallas Mavericks for 6 years. I've dealt with development for a long time, and it's hard, man, because especially if it's not tilted in your favor, if you're not a lottery pick, it's hard enough if you're a late first round pick. Now you're talking about a 20, like to sort of get your legs under you, get a real fair shot at staying with a team. It's got to be fucking tough. You're 29. You've already made great money, and probably won 27 championships before then.
Yeah,
like it's tough. Like it must have been tough for you, man.
It was hard just to get in the rotation. I was kind of fortunate because Yao was out, so that left a big gap for minutes to be played. And I thought I had big moments too. I remember one in LA when we beat the Lakers in LA, and I played a really good game. I had like 17 points and 8 boards or something. And, like I said, we got the big win. So there was moments where I was good and stuff, but the consistency of the NBA was probably the thing that I struggled with the most, is like, just being able to back up and do things like that, because I'm more of like a big game, player, and then I'd have my moments, in the next few games, then I'd step up again kind of thing. So, but the NBA was a challenge, and sticking in that rotation was hard. And then I got an injury in my back that year in about January, Feb, and I had a really bad sciatica problem. So that kind of hindered me. Obviously, I didn't finish the season with the Rockets, and then I had to do a lot of rehab over that off season. And that's when they acquired Patterson from the draft. And then I got they told me you could come back and try and earn your way in rotation, but I don't foresee, like, you'll get your money, basically, they said, because I was like, oh, you better pay me. And they were like, no, you'll get your money regardless. But if your agent can find something better, maybe pursue it. So that's when I went to Toronto and settled in with them for a little stint.
Was that with Bargnani there?
Bargnani was there.
Yeah.
Yes, he was there.
Yeah.
He was our starting big guy. So, yeah, he was there. So the Italian connection. Calderone, I remember he was another international.
Yeah, Bosch.
Then we had Bosch. No, Bosch wasn't there. No.
He just left to Miami.
Yeah, we had a couple. So
super team, that's right.
Yeah. So we had who else was DeMar DeRozan was there.
Oh, okay.
Sonny Weems, Kyle Lowry was there. So
She was solid. That was a start.
No, Kyle Lowry was in Houston. Sorry, then he came up later.
Over, yeah.
I'm trying to think. Who was it? Jared Jack. Yeah, Jared Jack was there because I got traded with him down in New Orleans.
Bogues, it's funny. And internationally, everywhere he went, he won. In the NBA, everywhere he went, the superstar went out of town. So, he had a sort of reverse effect when he got to the States.
Yeah.
He chased Yao Ming out of town, chased Chris Bosh out of town. It's pretty fucking good, man.
Chris Paul?
It's good.
Chris Paul, he was there. He was
almost,
solid.
yeah.
A couple of years later, he had enough of you, so he left.
Yeah, he was actually all right. I liked playing with Chris. He was a good guy to play with, but it was fun. But like I said, the NBA was cool. But the bad side, the reason why I had to leave or left the NBA, a lot of people might not know this, is because we went into lockout that year. It was 2011.
That's right. Yep.
NBA went into lockout.
2011, yeah.
And they didn't know what was going on. And I was like, oh, shit, here. And then for me, I was 31 and the London Olympics were coming around 2012. And I was like, man, I want to be performing well for them and stuff like that. I don't want to, think. So I didn't know. New Orleans didn't really want me.
You had an option at that point, right?
There was an option on the table. So I was like, listen, the lockout went until January that year. I think it was like it went on a while.
Went till January. Went till December 6th. I think was the first day back.
Yeah, I remember it went on for a while. So in my mind, and I had like this big offer from Siena again to go back, and I was going to start earning big money again, more money than was in NBA. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to go back to Europe. I know I'll play. I know I know what I'm doing.
Find your rhythm again.
Siena they had ambitions to win the whole EuroLeague again. So we were like gunning for it and everything. They laid out a lot of money. So I kind of said, okay, I'm going to go back there and try and apply my trade there. And hopefully I'll get re-offered once the NBA kicks back up again. So I went back to Europe and then London Olympics came around and I started, I did really well there, but then Siena went bankrupt. Which kind of screwed me, but then I got
transferred. It was owned by a bank, right?
They were owned by Montepaschi di Siena. It's a bank.
Yeah.
So we had the thing and the
financial crisis.
The president and his wife were in close with them, and then they sold out to some other big financial firm, and there was all discrepancies in the payout, and it was a pretty scary time. So they kind of on the down low said, "Listen, we know you got 2 more years on your deal, but we really don't have the money to pay you." So we highly recommend that you and your agent try and
find something else.
Get something else. And I was kind of like, oh, fuck, I'm on my high horse. I was like, nah, you owe me. I want to stay. I don't want to move again. I've just been moving 3 years in a row or 4 years in a row. And I was like, nah, I'm going to stay. And then so then I went to the London Olympics and I still had this contract with Siena. And I played pretty good because, unfortunately, you weren't there.
Yeah.
But I was starting center. Bainesy was coming along then, but I was starting center. So, and I played pretty well, and I was hoping to get another opportunity in the NBA, whether it be Vets Camp or minimum or something like that. But nothing actually eventuated, and then Fenerbahce offered me my contract from Siena to buy it out, all that. So I ended up going across to Turkey instead, which was a good move. I mean, same kind of thing. They wanted to win and pump things up a bit.
Team,
so it was fun, but the journey was hard. Going from the NBA back to Europe, obviously, it wasn't all roses. I mean, my wife didn't like it as much either. She appreciated the NBA life.
I can imagine,
it's a lot more nicer over there. And then you go back to Europe and you're squabbling with your team about, the sink doesn't work or something like this. And it's like, they're not listening to your wife when she says this doesn't work. So it's like, every little thing's a pain in the ass for them. Whereas NBA, you get treated, you need shit done, you get it done. So, but it was fun. I really enjoyed my time in the NBA. Made some good relationships and obviously some good networks as well. So,
any money stories, David, as far as like in Europe, like crazy money stories as far as not getting paid, having to chase guys down? Well,
Montepaschi still owe me probably about 200,000 euros. So if you want to go pursue some off President Fernando Minucci, you can go ask him because, I've lost a lot. I actually tell this to the young guys when they ask me about going to Europe and stuff. I say, yeah, it's a risk. Like, you might not get all your money, but at the end of the day, you'll probably end up with more in your pocket, even if you come back with half your money. So
that's the thing. The paper, there's the paper contract, and then you got to kind of
you got to wheel and deal and
mentally think I'm not going to get all that.
Well,
right?
yeah, exactly, and a lot fluctuates on performance. So luckily, I was winning a lot, so I was getting a lot of these things. And even when we were winning, sometimes you wouldn't get bloody paychecks. You'd be like, "Where's the bonus? It's supposed to come." Oh yeah, it's coming. You're like, bro, we just won the championship. You should be happy. You should be paying it straight away. They're like, oh, it's coming. But yeah, the teams are like that. Like I know Bologna lost a bit of money there when they went full bankrupt.
When I was in Greece, they told me the first words out of anyone who's born in Greece is tomorrow, meaning I'll pay you tomorrow.
Avrio, tomorrow.
I'll pay you tomorrow.
Yeah, that's Italian for domani.
Yeah, they said a great story, though. I forgot what team it was, but they owed players a shitload of money, and they said they weren't going to practice. I said, all right, we'll pay you. So they brought them down. They do this all the time. They paid the players before practice. So, of course, where the fuck are you going to put your money? They put it in the locker. So they sent somebody from the team down to steal all the fucking money out of their lockers.
Oh, that's
once
dope,
they fucking paid them.
Shit, I'm taking that bag of money. I'm going home. I'm putting it
Yeah.
I'm training with my socks strapped to my body or something. Yeah.
You're swallowing it in a condom like you're fucking smuggling drugs through the fucking over the fucking border.
Yeah,
but that's.
I was different. That's the Greek style. I know I've heard from other teammates. I won't mention names because I don't want to put them in trouble. But
tomorrow,
they have to the cash payments coming through. Like you got to sleep with it under your pillow. You're worried with a baseball bat kind of thing. Like fortunately, a lot of my teams they were pretty good, and so you didn't have to worry too much about the cash payments.
And the problem with Europe, the process to even appeal not being paid is it's gotten a bit better with FIBA, but it goes through a court tribunal pro. I'm not sure if you're aware, and then it can take years upon years. You got to pay
3 to 5 years. They say is a turnaround if you appeal, and you might win. You don't know.
And then if it gets close to being unfavorable for the team, they then end up just paying you. But it's been 4 or 5 years fighting the fucking shit, and they know most players are going to be in a different country or back in the US or Australia. They're not going to fight it. So they just got away with it for decades.
Yeah, definitely. Like back in my days, I remember, there was some offers on the table from Greece before. And then my agent was like, listen, if you do go to Greece, we're going to set up a trusted account where they've put the money already in there and you withdraw it every month for the thing. So they can't, just screw you. It'll be there. Because he was thinking we all knew they weren't going to pay. Even when I went to Russia, I was worried, wasn't going to get my money and stuff.
Big club though.
But CSKA was a massive club. It was like an NBA team. I realized that when I got there.
CSKA's the best.
But before I got there, I was like, I don't know, like Russia. Everyone was, Cold War stuff. Everyone's like, Russia. And I was like a pioneer too. Like no other Aussies had been. A lot of the Europeans hadn't been. So I went over there in, 04, 05 and signed a big deal. And I was like, it was cool. I got up more of my money and they offered me more the next year, and that's when Messina came over from Italy, and a couple of my teammates from that Kinder Bologna era came over, and we kind of made a new clique there, and we win EuroLeagues and stuff. So, but yeah, the money definitely in Europe it's harder to come by. Like it's not like NBA. NBA, you get your check every month. It's guaranteed.
Especially if you get hurt too in Europe. That's the other thing.
Oh yeah, you get hurt in Europe.
You probably didn't have any situations where you got hurt and you got.
No, I did. Well, that was one time in Italy. That was before the Athens. It was a year before. I think we would have met. I did my shoulder. It was 2002, 2003 season. So I dislocated my shoulder. I was playing with a dislocated, or what do they call it, subluxation of the back, where it'd pop in and out in the game. If I go up for a hard layup or a dunk or something, and someone smacked down on it, it would pop out, and I'd be like in oodles of pain and have to stop. Carried it for like a year and a half, and then happened in Christmas time that year 2002. Popped out again. The doc was like, "No, you need to do surgery. Your ligament's too far." So I got it repaired. Surgery in Italy. Went back home for a bit, came back, was rehabbing all the thing. And that was the year that the team actually went bankrupt in Bologna. And guys weren't getting paid from December or November. So no one was getting checks and everyone was singing. And the old Domani or tomorrow thing was coming into full effect like this. They sacked the coach. They changed his thing. They were doing all this crazy stuff. And I was actually injured. So I was thinking to myself, shit, I ain't going to get nothing of this. I was just like, fuck, this is a disaster. And I had 2 more years on my deal with bigger money. So long story short, I basically got 30% of my year's salary that year signed in Siena in the summer of 2003, right a month or so before the season started, because I was like still had a contract with Virtus, and they weren't officially bankrupt yet. They were going into second division or something like this. So I was like, oh God, I didn't want to give up all the money. And they were like, oh, we won't be able to pay you that amount. But and then Siena came to the party and said, listen, we'll pay you this amount, which is still a lot less, half what I should have been getting paid. And then I'm signing with them, knowing that they were trying to go to EuroLeague. They were in EuroLeague. They were trying to make Final Four and build and win the championship. And luckily, I took the pay cut, and I was probably the most highest paid performing player. I mean, underpaid performing player for them. And it worked out well, because then I signed a huge deal with CSKA. So, it was one of those things. Europe is like that. You just
it's just hard, like, to plan for. If you had a mortgage in Australia, you wouldn't want to bet your money on stuff like that. You just got to kind of roll with it and deal with it, and it is what it is. Just to wrap up, what was out of your whole careers from 1995 Frankston Blues Juniors to most recently Melbourne United? What was the most fulfilling part? And it doesn't have to be money wise. Doesn't have to be just the most fulfilling, enjoyable part of your career. Out of those last 20 years?
Enjoyable? I mean, you obviously, when you look at it, the Olympic stuff always stands out. I mean, that's always great from where I stand. But that on a professional side, probably, I mean, I really loved Italy. So winning that Triple Crown as a youngster, with the guys like Ginobili and all them, I'll remember that. That was an amazing time for me to win those kind of things. But it's hard to pinpoint one exact thing. I mean,
I'll give you an example. Like for me, I haven't really spoken about this a whole lot. It would have been before I turned professional. So it would have been like AIS college for me was the most purest form of basketball, because money wasn't involved. There wasn't all the hidden. So it just felt
hidden
like
agendas and stuff.
Felt like it was just pure basketball, where you're just going out to play basketball. You're not thinking about marketing and sponsorships and all that kind of stuff. So it just felt which is kind of national team-ish in a way.
That's where the national team for me was kind of like that, because you didn't get paid, or you didn't get
You're
nothing.
Not playing to get paid.
Some guys even paid to play. So it's like full true love of the game, and the brotherhood that comes with it was amazing for me. But yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of the steps along the way were great brothers. Like I said, I was fortunate. I've met good teammates all along the way. But yeah, going back, like basketball, you fall in love with it at a young age. I remember the battles with my brothers out the front of my yard in Frankston. Those are the ones where I fell in love with the game and got the passion about it and stuff like that. But then, playing with the junior national teams, those ones always reflect, in my reflections too, like, where you're growing as a player and you're starting to get better and better, playing against at the Schweizer tournament, being the MVP of that and being a pivotal part against the guys like Gasol, I was like, when I look back and I go, geez, I actually was pretty good as a junior. In my mind back then, I didn't think I was going to be a star. I didn't think I was being anything. But I was like, now when I look back, I go, oh yeah, that was pretty cool. And then probably the biggest one was the step going to the NBA. I reckon that was one of the ones when I checked that box, that kind of like fulfilled me a lot. Because I'd won a lot in Europe. I've won EuroLeagues. I was financially sound. Like I said, I didn't do it. It wasn't a financial decision for me. It was, if anything, was detrimental in that. I went against a lot of other people's recommendations. Like, my dad probably was like, oh, you could sign a bigger deal. Why do you got to take less money? And I was like, nah, I need to check this box. And it kind of was in my mind. I was like, nah, I need to go do this. And I went over there and I had the opportunity and I played a bit. Obviously I would have loved to have been there for 5 or 10 years.
Or retiring and not doing it would have just killed you, right? Like if you had,
I think so. True. Like that would be my advice to Jock too. Like, go for it, because this one, you don't want to leave no stone unturned in my eyes. So I had to give it a shot, and that was fulfilling to go over there and have some decent big games in my eyes. I was like,
you step foot on an NBA court, regardless of when and how, doesn't matter. I mean, there's only it's a unique club now, and it's getting bigger and bigger, but there's only 15, 20 odd guys that can say that have, and you actually played in games that were vital minutes, weren't just,
That's where you feel like that one, that's where it stands out to me, like that Lakers game when we won there, it was Kobe, it was all, I think it was like the big nuts. So it was one of those moments you go, well, yes, this is what I aspired to as a kid. I remember writing it on my wall as a kid, like one day I'll play in the NBA, and, just as what kids do, graffitiing the wall kind of thing. And then to think of that I can still see it written on my wall now when I reflect and I go, shit, I actually did achieve that. And that was the greatest, sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, yeah. And just to finish on a downer, what was the toughest part of that 20 years? What was something that stands out about? Did you have any, years or moments where you wanted to give up or through injuries or just had enough? I got homesick at times, so sometimes I was like, fuck, I just want to go home for 2 months.
There's definitely a homesick time.
But did you have any years that stood out where you were turning points where you really, because everyone thinks it's 20-year career, everything was great and easy, and David Andersen's winning 23 cups and comes back to the NBL, made a lot of money. It's just he's living life in the fast lane. But there's moments for all of us, years, sometimes months, rehabs, whatever it is that hit us between the eyes. I mean, can you give us an example of one of those?
Definitely. I mean, there's a few. I mean, over my career, I've suffered multiple really bad injuries. Probably the one that sticks out most to me is I broke my ankle on Australia Day in Real Madrid. With the CSKA Moscow, I was there. We were playing on the road, EuroLeague battle, and I totally snapped my foot, got pushed back down on by two other guys, and it was one of those moments I just knew it was bad. Like I thought I did my knee at the same time. That's how bad it was. Had to fly back to Moscow, got the scan. Like couldn't even MRI because it was that swollen. Just a CT scan. It showed 2 clear snaps, and I was like, "No, you're done." Like this could be. Well, they didn't tell me at the time, career ending. A lot of people thought it might be like in the staff and CSKA and that, but they never told me this. But yeah, that was a real downer. I mean, you sit down and you think, those kind of injuries, I'm sure you've had a few too. You kind of sit down and you think, oh shit, this is what I do. And now it's going to be taken away from me like that. And you kind of like sit there, you go, fuck, I remember seeing the scan. I knew it was bad, so I kind of was already prepared, but you kind of sit yourself, oh fuck, like what am I going to do? And that's where the support factor comes in. I got great family, great people around me that helped me, got me back on the track. I came back to Australia, so I had to fly pretty much around the world with a broken ankle to get back to Australia to have the surgery in Melbourne because it was regarded as like a AFL footy injury. Yeah. So snapping my foot like that. So I remember coming in, David Young patched me up, put some metal in my foot, got it all right. And short story, basically rehabbed the crap out of it, used my trainers and everyone, pool guys, got back on court, and I was back playing after about 9-10 months. But the flatness that comes along, the battles, trying to get that back on it's hard. It's like, you just, every day is a fight, just to try and get it right. And you kind of, it squanders your ambition. Takes your motivation.
The long-term injuries are a bitch because you can do the same shit every day for a month and really see maybe 2 degrees of better extension in your ankle, and you're like,
what the fuck? Like, how's this going to go better? But then I had the great support around me. Bowden Babicek, my trainer, athletics guy, he was always like, mate, just you stick with it. Watch, you'll stick to this level for like 3 weeks, like you say, and then all of a sudden it'll go boom. But you don't need to try and push it because otherwise it will. So having this good support around me definitely helped and made it easier on me. And I came back off this injury and I was performing at the high level within a year or so. So those are good. But those moments, coupled with obviously the homesickness, like, being overseas in Europe, it's a lot lonelier there probably now. I mean, back then, because we didn't have FaceTime, we didn't have all this, which is probably not a bad thing either because I didn't know about Australia. Like if you're playing in Europe now and you're looking on your Instagram and you're seeing all these guys having fun in the sun in
Australia. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you think it'd help with homesickness.
But it won't. I reckon it's the worst. The opposite, right? Exactly. So I didn't have, I wasn't talking to mates on the phone every 2 seconds. I was just in my own little bubble over in Europe with my brother. So, but there was moments at night where you're like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm over here in a foreign speaking country, don't know anything after a bad game. You're like, what the fuck? You don't know what you're going to do, but you just kind of, you find it inside of you, your resilience, your ambition. I wanted to play. I liked doing what I do, and I just found comforts and things to keep me motivated and busy.
Bro, finish off with anything? Any grillings for old GQ?
Nah, I got no grillings for this dude, man.
Yeah.
No, it was cool you have such a weird sort of career based on what, like Bogues said, like what most Australian players that played really well and had great careers did. Like usually they stayed in the NBL most of their careers. And then they maybe went to the NBA, maybe they didn't, but they didn't do the Europe thing for that long. And you had such a great run at the European, at the international level, then go to the NBA at an advanced age, being a second round pick, I mean, you were already a drafted guy, and then you go to the NBA, and then you go back. It's just 20 fucking years, man. Like,
yeah, it's 20 plus. I always tell everyone now. That's
I'll
what
give him shit, bro. I'll give him shit that the reason why he keeps playing, he's got some kids at home that are young kids and just doesn't want to go home to a full-time dad yet. So he's 41. You're 41, right?
Yeah, 41.
Still looking for a contract?
Yeah, always. Tell all those NBL teams out there, NBA teams, everyone. No, it's one of those things. I enjoy the game. I mean, you fall in love with it. I'm sure Bogues is the same. Like, you want to think, and it's hard to give it up. So, it is one of those things.
They're starting a new pro league called the Mediocre 3. If you want to go in that, we could probably get you in. So it's not necessarily the big 3. It's more the Mediocre 3. We could probably get you through there.
Funny story, bro. I actually got a message from them the other day. I think it was
really?
2 months ago. I said, yeah, if you got a wheelchair big 3, I'm in. Otherwise, stop fucking messaging me.
Hey, who the fuck you gonna guard? Michael Rappaport? Get the fuck out of here.
And just that whole hype train behind it. Like, do they know anything about me? Like, that's so not me.
No.
I don't know the 3v3 stuff, but yeah, it's going to be an Olympic sport now.
Yeah. All right. Well,
it's cool.
Dave, we appreciate your time.
It's good.
What are you doing now? Anything you want to promote? Anything you want to give a shout out to? Feel free to. If not, we appreciate your time. I think it's a pretty cool message for our listeners to hear out of the, usually hear from NBA players and all that kind of stuff, but hearing a different journey of a guy that's been real successful. One thing I will say around your injuries is that you're one of the most utmost professional guys I've been around.
Thanks, brother.
You were a guy that was always getting in the extra work. I remember the Olympic Village. You'd always be going to the Olympic weight room, stretching and foam rolling and not lifting. You weren't a hardcore lifter, like weight-wise, but just always maintaining your body and making sure you were ready for the next day's game or practice. And I think most guys that have played with you have learned a lot just from your professionalism. Even through a shitty game or a good game, you still were kind of the same every day. And that's hard to do over the journey of an Olympics or a season where you get frustrated with yourself and you're not playing well, and you were always kind of that most professional with everything you did.
Well, that gives you that level-headedness, I suppose. That's where I use that off-court stuff to keep me, because the highs and lows of basketball happen all the time. You're going to have good games, bad games, so you got to have other things in play that keep you, level-headed or monotone, sometimes I call it. So, yeah, I use the gym a lot just to keep me ticking along, keep me working, and obviously keep my body ticking along. I was never that physical presence, probably not as much as you. You got the big-ass, long-ass arms, you're taller, more jump higher, all that kind of stuff. So I had to get crafty, but definitely the gym stuff helped me, and keeping that side of things working was great. But the only thing I like to say is, like, for the kids out there, there's pathways. There's other ways to do things, like, it doesn't have to be, NBL or whatever it is, AIS, straight to college, straight to NBA. You can go different routes, and hopefully they learn in the NBL now. It's getting to a level where kids are going to be here, and with local talent's going to stay here more and more and more. But there's a whole world of European basketball out there, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the cultural ride that I did along the ways. I enjoyed seeing all the different parts of the world, and it's eye-opening. It's life-changing stuff. So for me, just a little kid from Frankston, growing up, never thought there's things. I saw the world from basketball, and hopefully some other kids will do the same thing in the future.
All right, Pro. Final word.
I got nothing, brother. I got nothing. Hey, seriously though, it was fun talking to you. You're probably one of the, you're young enough where you could continuously kick the shit out of me. So with Andrew Gaze and those guys, I could fuck with them a little bit, because they ain't going to, they'll probably still catch me, but I don't want to fuck with a guy that's, once you get in your 50s, come back to us, I'll fuck with you a little bit more, but you could still, choke the living shit out of me. So I'll let this one slide for today.
I'll get you, mate. Don't worry. I'll come and find you in Dallas, wherever you're at.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, Pro. Thanks, Dave.
Good on you.